The waitress and the monster. He made the elite kneel for her, the wine glass shattered against the marble floor, and with it, Arya Vance's entire life. 1 second she was invisible, just another girl in a cheap black dress carrying champagne to people who'd never look her in the eye. The next, she was on her knees in front of 300 of New York's richest, a man in a $10,000 suit laughing down at her, calling her something no woman should ever be called. Then the room went silent, because he walked in. Nikolai Draven. And he had heard every word. Before we begin, if you enjoy dramatic love stories where the powerful protect the broken, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far my stories travel. Now, settle in. This one's going to hurt before it heals. The Whitlock Gala had a way of making people feel small, and Arya Vance felt smaller than most. She stood behind a velvet rope that didn't exist, but she could feel it anyway, pressing against her ribs like a hand. The ballroom of the Belmont Hotel stretched out in front of her, all cream marble and gold leaf, chandeliers the size of small cars throwing soft yellow light over women who'd spent more on their earrings than Arya had earned in her entire 24 years. The air smelled like lilies and money. She'd never smelled money before, not like this. It had a scent, she realized. Clean, cold, a little bit like nothing at all. Table 8 needs another round of champagne, honey. Move. The woman barking at her was named Denise, a 40-something shift supervisor with a voice like a cigarette. Arya didn't answer. She just adjusted the silver tray on her shoulder, straightened her spine, and started walking. She'd been on her feet for 6 hours already, and her feet had stopped being feet around hour 4. Now they were just 2 throbbing, angry reminders that she'd spent her last $40 on the black flats she was wearing because the service said dress shoes, and Arya didn't own any. She'd practiced walking in them in her apartment for 3 nights straight, gliding back and forth across the cracked linoleum while her roommate Marisol laughed at her from the couch. "You look like a waitress pretending to be a ballerina." "I am a waitress pretending to be a ballerina." Marisol had thrown a pillow at her. "You look beautiful. Shut up." Arya didn't feel beautiful now. She felt like a ghost in somebody else's house. The dress was black, plain, buttoned high at the throat because the agency insisted on it. Her dark hair was pulled back so tight it hurt. She'd put on a little mascara in the cab, but her lipstick had already worn off against the rim of a water glass she'd taken a secret sip from in the kitchen. $300. That was what tonight was worth. $300, and half of that was already spoken for, owed to a landlord who'd left her a note taped to her door last Tuesday. Final notice. He'd underlined it twice. She threaded her way through the crowd, balancing the tray, and tried not to look at anyone's face. That was a trick she'd learned fast. If you didn't look at them, they didn't really see you. You became furniture with legs. A moving plant. She'd served a senator earlier, and he'd taken a glass off her tray without even pausing in his conversation. Like she was a vending machine. Like hands just appeared with drinks in them. "Excuse me." A woman in emerald silk touched her elbow. "Could you tell someone these shrimp are warm? They should be chilled." "Yes, ma'am. I'll let the kitchen know. And quickly, please." "Yes, ma'am." Arya kept walking. She didn't tell the kitchen anything. The shrimp had come out of a walk-in cooler 40 minutes ago. They were fine. The woman just wanted to feel like she'd fixed something. Table 8 was near the south wall, beneath a painting of some old dead man with a serious face. Arya set down the tray, started distributing flutes. She was careful. She was always careful. 1 broken glass was a week of groceries. "You're new." She looked up. A young man was watching her. Not a boy, but not quite a man either. Late 20s, maybe. Expensively rumpled, tuxedo jacket thrown open, tie loose. He had a long, handsome face and the kind of eyes that already knew they were beautiful. He was holding a tumbler of something amber, and she could smell the alcohol on him from 3 feet away. "Good evening, sir. May I offer you champagne?" "I asked if you were new." She glanced over his shoulder. A group of his friends, men and women both, were watching her with the mild interest people reserved for things about to happen to other people. Her stomach did a small, cold thing. "Yes, sir. I'm new to this particular event." "Look at me when you answer." She looked at him. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a boy who had never, not once in his entire life, been told no. "What's your name?" "Arya." "Arya." He tasted the word. That's a pretty name. Is it real? Yes, sir. It sounds made up. I didn't make it up, sir. One of the friends laughed. A woman in red gold bracelets stacked to her elbow. Julian, leave the help alone. Julian. The name landed somewhere in the back of Arya's head, and she felt the floor shift under her. Julian Whitlock, the Whitlock in Whitlock Gala. His family had built half of Midtown, owned most of what they hadn't built, and bought the rest. She'd seen his face on the invitation she'd been handed at the agency. She'd thought he looked like someone she'd want to cross the street to avoid. She was right. I'm not bothering her, Julian said, eyes on Arya. Am I bothering you, Arya? No, sir. See? Not bothering her. He leaned in. His breath was a physical thing. You know what I've been thinking about all night? Sir, I've been thinking about how a girl like you ends up at a party like this. I was hired, sir, by the catering company. No, no, no. He waved that off like it was a bad smell. I mean, how does a girl like you end up existing at a party like this? Look at you, standing there, breathing our air. His friends laughed. He was playing to them now. Do you know what a ticket to this event costs? No, sir. $25,000. She didn't answer. $25,000, Arya. I bet that's what, like 2 years of rent for you? 3? Her face was going hot. She could feel it climbing up her throat. Sir, if you'd excuse me, I'm talking to you. I have other tables, sir. Then they can wait. He stepped in front of her. He wasn't a big man, but he was bigger than her, and he used every inch of it. I'm trying to have a conversation. That's what people do at parties. They have conversations. Unless, of course, and here he smiled at his friends again, unless you're not really people. The woman in red said, Oh my God, Julian, stop! But she was laughing too. Arya tried to step around him. He matched her. Left, right, left. Like a man blocking a door. Sir, please. Say please again. I like that. Please let me pass. No. It was so simple. Just that word, spoken softly. No. Like he was saying it to a dog. She felt her grip on the tray start to shake. There were still 4 full flutes on it. She thought, do not drop these, do not drop these, do not drop these. You know what I think? Julian said. He was speaking loudly now. Around them, conversations were starting to taper off. People were turning. A small audience was forming. The way audiences always formed around cruelty, drawn in by the smell of it. I think it's cute that you came here. I think it's cute that you got dressed up in your little outfit and you thought, oh, maybe tonight I'll breathe the same air as real people. Maybe tonight I'll pretend. Sir, I'm going to do you a favor, Arya. I'm going to tell you something nobody ever told you, because nobody in your life has ever loved you enough to be honest. Julian, Jesus. The woman in red wasn't laughing anymore. You don't belong here. He said it gently, almost tender. Do you understand me? You were never going to belong here, not in this room, not at this party, not within a block of this hotel. You can wear the dress, and you can do the hair, and you can practice the smile, but the second you open your mouth, everybody in a room like this knows. We all know. We can smell it on you. Her eyes were burning. She would not cry. She was not going to cry. If she cried, she lost. She didn't know exactly what she lost, but she knew she lost it. Say you understand. Sir, say it. Please, say it. She opened her mouth and she didn't know what was going to come out, and she'd never know because at that exact moment the tray shifted on her shoulder. Her right arm, which had been holding it steady for 6 hours, finally gave out in a single small tremor, and a flute of champagne tipped forward and fell. It hit the marble. It exploded. A spray of champagne and broken glass fanned across the floor, across Julian Whitlock's $4,000 Italian shoes, and up the leg of his black tuxedo pants in a dark, spreading wet. The ballroom went quiet. Not all at once, in waves. The conversations closest to them dropped first, then the next ring out, and the next, like something was sucking the sound out of the room. Arya stood with an empty space on her tray and her whole body humming. Julian looked down at his pants. Then he looked up at her. And his face changed. It was the smallest thing, a little softening, a little settling, like a man who had just been handed a gift. Oh, he said. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I didn't. On your knees. What? Get on your knees. He wasn't smiling anymore. His voice had dropped into something flat and cold, and Arya suddenly understood that this was the real Julian Whitlock, that the flirting and the preening and the playing for his friends had all been a warm-up act, and now the curtain had gone up. You spilled it. You're going to clean it up. Sir, I'll get a towel. On your knees. She didn't move. I said. He reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. Get down there and clean it up. The hand wasn't rough. It wasn't even heavy. It was just insistent. It pressed, and her exhausted legs, which had been standing on a marble floor for 6 hours, folded under her like somebody had cut the strings. She went down. The tray clattered out of her hands. The remaining flutes tipped and shattered, and she felt a piece of glass open up her palm, a clean, bright line of pain. And then the blood was coming, and she was on her hands and knees in her cheap black dress, with her hair coming out of its bun, and 300 of the richest people in New York were watching her bleed on the floor. She started picking up glass. Look at that, Julian said softly, almost to himself. Look at her. You know what you are? He leaned down. He put his mouth near her ear. You're exactly what I said you were. You're nothing. You're a dumb, broke, clumsy little piece of... And then he said it. The word she would never, as long as she lived, say out loud to another human being. The word that landed in her chest like a hot coin and sat there burning. Someone in the crowd gasped. Someone else laughed. The laughter was worse than the gasp. Arya kept her head down. She picked up a piece of glass. She picked up another. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely close her fingers around them. A drop of her blood fell on the marble and mixed with the champagne, and she watched it spread in a pink halo. She was going to be okay. She was going to be okay. She just had to get through this. She'd get up, she'd walk to the kitchen, she'd quit, she'd go home. She'd never think about this night again. The sound in the room changed. It was strange how she felt it before she heard it. A pressure shift, like a door had opened somewhere. The murmuring around her, the half-laughs, the whispered, "Oh my gods." All of it started to fade, not because people had decided to stop, but because something else had entered the room that demanded their attention more. She looked up. A man was walking across the ballroom toward them. He wasn't hurrying. That was the first thing she noticed. Everybody at a party like this moved with a certain performed ease, hands in pockets, drinks balanced just so, the whole choreography of not trying. He wasn't doing any of that. He was just walking. Straight across the marble, past the tables, past the string quartet that had faltered to a stop, straight at her. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, dark suit, no tie, the collar of a black shirt open at his throat. His hair was dark, cut close on the sides, a little longer on top. His face was not a pretty face. It was a face that had been built, not given. Sharp jaw, a small scar bisecting one eyebrow, a mouth that looked like it hadn't smiled on purpose in a long time. He was maybe 35, maybe older. It was hard to tell. He had very pale eyes, and every single person in that room, as he moved past them, stopped talking. She watched them. She watched the way their bodies went still when he came close. A senator's wife actually took a step backwards, not fast, just a polite little shuffle, the way you'd move away from an open flame. A man Arya recognized from magazine covers, some billionaire, some tech guy, went a shade of gray and turned his whole body toward the wall. A judge, a real judge, she'd seen him on television last year, actually lowered his eyes to the floor. They weren't afraid of him the way she was afraid of Julian Whitlock. That was a loud fear, a bully's fear, the kind that made people laugh too hard and sweat at the collar. This was different. This was the quiet, animal fear of people who had remembered suddenly and all at once that civilization was a very thin layer. The man was 10 feet away now. Julian turned to see what everyone was looking at. When he saw, his mouth made a small, surprised shape. "Draven," he said. The man didn't answer him. He walked right past Julian like Julian wasn't there, and he stopped in front of Arya. And then he did something she would think about for the rest of her life. He crouched down. He went all the way down, onto one knee, in his $10,000 suit, on the marble that was still wet with champagne and her blood, and he looked at her. Not past her, not around her. At her. Like she was the only person in the room. "Are you hurt?" His voice was quiet, low. An accent she couldn't place, something Eastern European that had been smoothed down by years of American rooms. She couldn't speak. She just held up her hand. The palm was bleeding, a thin red line running down her wrist into the sleeve of her dress. Something happened behind his eyes. It was very small, a kind of settling, a decision being made. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a handkerchief, white silk, and took her hand. He turned it over, gentle, like he was handling something that might break. He pressed the handkerchief against her palm and closed her fingers around it. "Hold that," he said. "Press down. Not too hard." Look at me." She looked at him. "What's your name?" "Arya. Arya." He said it the same way Julian had said it, but it sounded like a different word coming out of his mouth. "Arya, I want you to stand up. Can you stand up for me?" She nodded, slowly. He put a hand under her elbow, and he lifted her. She felt weightless. Her knees wobbled when she was up, and he steadied her, just a firm pressure at her arm, and then he let her go. He turned. He turned to Julian Whitlock. "Julian." He said it the way you'd say the name of a dog that had done something on the carpet. "What did you just call her?" "Nikolai." "Come on, it was a joke, man. The bitch broke a glass on my—" Nikolai moved. It wasn't fast. It wasn't violent. He just took one step forward into Julian's space, and Julian's voice stopped like someone had unplugged him. Nikolai was taller by maybe 3 inches and broader by a good deal, and he just stood there. And Julian Whitlock, heir to half of Manhattan, leaned backwards like a sapling in a storm. "Try that again," Nikolai said. Without the word. Try it again." She broke a glass. I was having a moment with her. It was nothing. Nobody was hurt. Her hand is bleeding. She did that to herself, man. I didn't— Julian. Nikolai tilted his head very slightly. "Who owns this building?" "What?" "The hotel, the Velmont. Who owns it?" Julian's mouth opened, closed. "I'll help you," Nikolai said. "A shell company in Delaware called Bayview Holdings owns it. Bayview Holdings is a wholly owned subsidiary of a Luxembourg entity called Marrow Trust. Marrow Trust is administered by a firm in Zurich. The firm in Zurich takes its instructions from one man. Can you guess who that man is, Julian?" Julian said nothing. "I'll give you a hint. You're looking at him." A woman somewhere in the crowd made a small sound like she'd been kicked. "So when I tell you that I want you to turn around," Nikolai said very softly, "and look at this young woman, and apologize to her in front of every person in this room, with your voice loud enough that the quartet can hear you from across the floor. Understand that I'm not asking. I'm telling you what's going to happen next in your life. Do you understand?" "Nikolai, man, my father—" "Your father owes me 3 favors. He'll give me a 4th before he defends you tonight. Do you understand?" Julian's face had gone the color of wet paper. "Turn around, Julian." Julian turned. He was looking at Arya now. His eyes were wet. Not from feeling. From panic. She'd seen that face on 100 men at the bar she worked at on weekends. The face a man made when he realized he was going to have to pay a bill he couldn't afford. "I'm sorry," he said. Louder. "I'm sorry. Her name is Arya. Use it." "Arya." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "Arya, I'm sorry. I was out of line. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. I shouldn't have touched you. I shouldn't have put my hands on you. I'm sorry." "What did you call her?" "What?" "The word, Julian. Say the word, and then apologize for saying it." He closed his eyes. He said the word. It was so quiet Arya almost didn't hear it, and in the silence of that ballroom, it sounded like a gunshot. "I shouldn't have said that," he whispered. "It was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Arya." "Good." Nikolai did not look away from him. "Now leave." You will leave this party. You will get in your car. You will go home. You will not attend another event I am present at for 1 calendar year. If I see you before then, we will have a different conversation. Are we clear?" "Yes." "Go." Julian went. He walked fast, almost a jog, his ruined pants sticking to his leg. The crowd parted for him in perfect silence. He didn't look at anyone. The girl in the red dress, his friend, started to step forward, and then she didn't. She just watched him go. When the door at the far end of the ballroom closed behind him, The silence hung on for another full second. 2. Then, very carefully, the string quartet began to play again. It was a soft, nervous piece of Mozart, like they'd chosen it to apologize. Nikolai Draven turned back to Arya. The force of his full attention, undivided, was almost more than she could stand. She felt her body trying to take a step back, and she made it not. Something in her, some small, stubborn thing that had survived the floor and the glass and Julian's breath in her ear, dug its fingers into the marble and held on. "Your hand," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not. I'll have someone look at it." "Sir, I don't need anything from you. I need to—" She gestured vaguely at the floor, the broken glass, the mess. "I need to clean this up. I need to do my job." A flicker of something at the corner of his mouth. It might have been amusement. It didn't reach his eyes. "Your job is over. I have to—" "Your job is over because I own the company that hired you, the hotel they hired you to work in, and the catering firm that staffed the event. You are not fired. You are relieved. There is a difference. Come with me." "I don't—" "Arya." She stopped. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to touch you. I'm going to walk you to a private room where a doctor is going to look at your hand, and then I'm going to ask you one question, and then you can go home or anywhere else you want to go, and a car will take you, and nothing in your life has to change. Do you understand?" She nodded. "Say it." "I understand." "Good. Walk with me." He did not take her arm. He did not put his hand on the small of her back, the way men did, the way even kind men did. He just turned and started walking, and she followed, because everybody in that room was following him with their eyes, and she suddenly, desperately, did not want to be left alone in the middle of that floor. They crossed the ballroom. The crowd parted for them the way it had parted for Julian, but not the same way. For Julian, people had stepped aside to watch him fall. For Nikolai, they stepped aside like he was a weather system. A woman whispered to her husband as they passed, and the husband hushed her so fast Arya heard his teeth click. The quartet missed a note. A waiter, one of Arya's people, a kid named Eduardo she'd shared a cab with on the way here, caught her eye and his mouth fell open, and she gave him the smallest, tiniest shake of her head. "I don't know either." Nikolai led her out of the ballroom, down a corridor lined with oil paintings, through a door that a man in a black suit had already opened before they reached it. Arya only registered the man as they walked past him. He didn't look at her. He nodded, once, at Nikolai, and Nikolai nodded back, and there was an entire conversation in that nod that Arya didn't have the vocabulary for. They went into a small sitting room. Green walls, leather chairs, a fire going in a fireplace that was there for show. A doctor was waiting, a real doctor, with a medical bag, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes, and Arya thought, how did he know? How did he know to have a doctor here before we even got here? "Sit," Nikolai said. Arya sat. The doctor came over. "Let me see your hand, sweetheart." Arya held it out. The handkerchief was soaked through. The doctor peeled it back carefully, made a small clicking noise with her tongue. "Not too bad. It's going to need a few stitches, but it's clean. Did you swallow any glass?" "No." "Are you in any other pain, anywhere?" Arya almost laughed. Where to start? "No," she said. The doctor got to work. She numbed the hand with a little needle that Arya barely felt. She cleaned the cut. She started to stitch. Nikolai stood by the fireplace watching. Not at Arya. At the fire. "I said I had one question," he said. "Okay." "Do you need money?" She stared at him. "I'm not asking if you want money," he said. "I'm asking if you need it. There's a difference. If you tell me you need it, a sum of money will appear in your account tomorrow, sufficient to remove whatever specific problem is currently keeping you awake at night. Rent, a loan, a relative's medical bill, whatever it is. It's not charity. It's a correction. You should not have been humiliated in my ballroom and gone home with a worse problem than you came in with. Do you need money?" Her throat closed. She wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say yes. $4,000. That was all. $4,000 and a month of breathing room, and she could find another job, a better one. She looked at him. She looked at the set of his shoulders, the cut of his coat, the scar on his eyebrow. She thought about the way the room had gone quiet when he walked in. She thought about Julian saying his name like a prayer, Draven. "No," she heard herself say. He turned. He actually turned his head and looked at her, and something in his pale eyes changed. A little light somewhere at the back of them. No? I don't know who you are, sir. I can tell you're important. I can tell everybody out there is scared of you, but I don't know you. And if I take your money, then I'm... She was shaking, she realized, her whole body. Then I'm yours, in some way. And I'd rather bleed out of this hand than be something that belongs to somebody. No offense. The corner of his mouth did that thing again. A flicker. None taken. The doctor glanced up. Almost done, honey. Nikolai watched Arya for a long moment. You're afraid of me. Yes. But not of him. I'm afraid of him too. I'm more used to being afraid of him. He's the kind of mean I know. You're a kind of mean I don't. Who says I'm mean? Everybody in that room, sir. Without saying it. He let out a breath through his nose. It was not quite a laugh. Fair. He moved away from the fireplace. He sat down, not next to her, but in a chair across the small rug, so there was space between them. He rested his elbows on his knees. Arya, one more thing, and then a car is going to take you home, and I meant what I said. Nothing has to change. Okay. Would you do me the honor of a dance? She thought she'd misheard him. I'm sorry? One dance. In the ballroom. When we go back out there, I want you to dance with me. One song, and then you can go. Sir, Nikolai. Nikolai. The name sat strange in her mouth. My hand. I'm a mess. I'm bleeding. I don't know how to dance at a party like this. My feet are, I'm in a waitress dress. That's not why I'm asking. Then why? He looked at her for a long time. Because out there, he said, 300 of the most powerful people in this city watched a young woman get put on her knees in front of them. And a few of them laughed. And none of them helped her. His voice did not rise, but something underneath it did. I can make Julian Whitlock apologize. I can remove him from this room. I cannot make them unsee it. I cannot take it out of their mouths tomorrow when they talk about it on the phone. What I can do is walk back into that ballroom with you, and I can dance with you. One song, because I want every single person in that room to understand something about how tonight is going to be remembered. I want them to tell it as the night Nikolai Draven danced with her, not the night she fell. Arya realized she was crying. She hated it. She hated the tears on her face in front of this man. She wiped them with the back of her good hand, rough, and the doctor quietly handed her a tissue without looking up. Why do you care? She whispered. You don't even know me. I don't, he agreed. That's not why I care. Then why? He was quiet. Because my sister was your age, he said, when a man like Julian Whitlock humiliated her at a party, and there was nobody in that room to do for her what I'm doing for you, and I live with that every day. The room went very still. The doctor finished the last stitch. She tied it off. She put a clean white bandage around Arya's palm, wrapped it neatly, taped it. Good as new, she said softly. Couple of weeks. Thank you. You're welcome, honey. The doctor packed up. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. Nikolai stood. One dance, he said. Or none. Your choice. I mean that. Arya looked down at herself. The cheap black dress, the bandaged hand, the hair falling out of its bun, the shoes she'd practiced walking in for 3 nights. She looked like exactly what she was. A waitress who'd been humiliated by a rich boy at a party she was not supposed to exist at. She stood up. One dance, she said. He nodded, like she'd given the right answer to a question he hadn't really asked. He offered her his arm. She took it. His forearm was solid under her fingers, warm through the fabric. And she was terrified, genuinely terrified, and also, underneath the terror, was something else. A thing that she would not name for a long time. They walked back into the ballroom. The silence that had been fraying, the nervous buzz of rich people recovering from a scene, stopped dead when they saw her on his arm. 300 faces turned. The string quartet stopped playing, ragged, a violin trailing off like a question. Nikolai did not break stride. He walked her to the center of the floor. He stopped. He let go of her arm. He stepped back, just a foot, so there was air between them. He looked at the quartet. He did not speak. He just looked at them. The first violinist started to play. It was a slow piece, a waltz. Arya did not know how to waltz. Nikolai extended his right hand. "Put your left hand on my shoulder," he said quietly. "Your right hand in mine. I'll do the rest. You just have to stand in the right place. Can you do that?" "I think so." "Arya, look at me." She looked at him. "We're not dancing for them." "Then who are we dancing for?" His fingers closed around hers, warm, careful of the bandage. "For you," he said. "Just you." And the music rose. And he moved her into the first step. And she followed him, a half beat behind, clumsy, scared, bleeding through her bandage a little. And he was patient, and he was gentle. And when she stepped on his foot, he just smiled, very small, a private thing, not for the crowd, and kept going. She didn't know what was happening to her. She didn't know that this was the moment her life divided itself in two, a before and an after. A girl on her knees and a woman on a man's arm, with 300 of the richest people in the world watching, not knowing which was the real her. She didn't know that somewhere in the crowd, a man with a phone had taken a picture, and by dawn that picture would be on the screens of people she had never heard of, in cities she'd never been to, and the quiet machinery of Nikolai Draven's empire would already be turning to protect her, because he had claimed her with this dance, whether he'd meant to or not. And enemies she didn't know she had were already sharpening themselves in the dark. She didn't know any of that. What she knew was that her hand hurt, and her feet hurt, and the man holding her had asked her to stand still and let him do the rest. And for the first time in a very long time, somebody had offered her that, and meant it. The song ended. He bowed. Actually bowed. A small, old-fashioned inclination of his head. She didn't know what to do, so she just nodded back, stupid, feeling her face go hot. He walked her to the door. He walked her all the way down the stairs of the Velmont, under the portico, to a black car that was already there, running, a driver holding the door open. Before she got in, he said, "I'd like to see you again." "I don't think that's a good idea." "It isn't," he agreed. "Can I see you again anyway?" She should have said no. Every rational part of her knew it. She had just watched an entire ballroom full of the richest, most powerful people in New York bend to this man's will, like grass in a wind, and she was a waitress, and her hand was bleeding, and she didn't even know his first name an hour ago. "I work at a diner on 9th, she said, "near 46, Rudy's. I'm there Wednesdays through Sundays, morning shift." He smiled. It was the first real one. Not big, just a thing at the corner of his mouth, a crinkle at his eyes. It made him look younger. It made him look like a person. "Rudy's on 9th, he said. "Wednesdays through Sundays. Morning shift." Morning shift. She got in the car. The driver closed the door. The car pulled away. She looked back through the tinted window just once, and he was still standing there in front of the hotel, hands in his pockets, watching her go. A dark shape against the gold light of the Velmont, and the last thing she saw before the car turned the corner was a man in a black coat stepping up behind him and beginning to speak. And Nikolai, not looking at the man, lifting one hand and silencing him with a gesture so small she almost missed it. She sat back. Her hand throbbed. The city slid past the window. She didn't recognize any of it. She closed her eyes. Somewhere in New York, at that exact second, in a penthouse she had never been in, a man she had never met was looking at the photograph on his phone of Nikolai Draven, dancing with a dark-haired girl in a cheap black dress. And he was smiling the way a man smiles when he has just been handed a weapon. And Arya Vance, who had left her apartment that morning owing $4,000 in rent, rode home in a car that cost more than her building, pressing a bloody handkerchief to a cut that would leave a thin white scar across her palm for the rest of her life. A scar she would, for the rest of her life, be unable to look at, without remembering the exact moment a stranger knelt in front of her and asked her name. The apartment was dark when Arya got home. She stood in the hallway for a full minute with her key in the door, not turning it, just listening to herself breathe. 6 flights up, the hallway smelled the way it always smelled. Old carpet and somebody frying onions 3 doors down. And the bulb at the end of the hall was still out because the super hadn't come by in 2 weeks. And none of that had changed in the last 4 hours. And all of it felt wrong. She turned the key. Marisol was on the couch, legs folded under her, a mug of something in her hands, and the TV turned down low. She looked up when Arya came in, and her face did three different things in quick succession. Relief, then a smile, then, when she saw the bandage, a kind of horror. "What happened to your hand?" "It's fine." "Arya." "It's fine, Mari. I cut it on a glass." Marisol put the mug down. She got up off the couch in that slow, careful way she had, because her back was bad, and she came over and took Arya's wrist and turned it gently in the light. "That is not from a glass." "It's from a glass." "How big was the glass? A vase?" "I dropped a tray." Marisol didn't answer. She just looked at Arya's face, really looked, the way only people who've lived with you for 3 years can look, and whatever she saw in it made her mouth go flat. "Who hurt you?" "Nobody hurt me." "Arya." "I'm going to take a shower," Arya said, and her voice cracked on shower, and Marisol let go of her wrist and did not say anything else, just followed her into the bathroom and sat on the closed lid of the toilet while Arya ran the water, because Marisol knew that sometimes Arya needed somebody in the room and nobody looking at her, and that was what friends were. The water was too hot. Arya stood under it until her skin was red. She kept her bandaged hand out past the curtain. The stitches pulled when she tried to wash her hair one-handed, and she gave up and just stood there, letting the water hit her shoulders and run down her back. And she did not cry, because she had decided, on the ride home, that she was not going to cry anymore tonight. She'd cried enough for one night. She'd cried on her knees in a ballroom. That was her quota. When she came out, Marisol was still on the toilet lid scrolling on her phone. She looked up. "You have a concussion or something?" "No." "You sure? You look like somebody hit you." "Nobody hit me." "Okay, good." Marisol handed her a towel. "Because I would kill somebody. I would. I don't even know who, but I would find them and I would kill them." Arya laughed. It came out wet. "Somebody's on the stairs," Marisol said. "What?" "Just now. Heavy feet. Sounded like a guy. Probably 6C coming back from work." 6C does not weigh that much. But then, nothing happened. No knock. No second pair of feet. Just the building settling, a pipe groaning somewhere, the distant constant noise of the city. Arya wrapped herself in the towel, and they went into the kitchen, and Marisol made her tea, and Arya drank it one-handed at the little table. And she did not tell Marisol what had happened. Not yet. She couldn't. She didn't have the words. She knew that if she said the name Nikolai Draven out loud in her own kitchen, it would make it real. And right now, she needed another hour of it not being real. She went to bed. She did not sleep. She lay on her back in the dark and watched the shadows of the fire escape move on the ceiling, and she thought about a man kneeling on a marble floor in a suit that cost more than she'd make in a year, and she thought about his hands closing her fingers around a white handkerchief, and she thought about Julian Whitlock saying that word, and she thought about 300 faces turning when the door opened, and somewhere around 4 in the morning, she got up and took her phone into the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub and typed Nikolai Draven into the search bar. She hit the button. She stared at the screen. The screen stared back. There was nothing. No Wikipedia page, no LinkedIn, no news articles, no Instagram, no photographs. She typed it again in case she'd spelled it wrong. Nothing. She tried Draven, New York, nothing. Draven Hotel Velmont, nothing, like she'd made him up, like he didn't exist. She tried Nikolai Draven Bayview Holdings, because that was the only other thing she'd heard him say. There it was, buried 4 pages deep in the results, a single piece in a financial blog from 6 years ago. Who is the man behind Bayview? The shell company's shells, an investigation. She tapped it. The article loaded, slow, half the images broken. The writer had not gotten very far. He had managed to establish that Bayview Holdings owned a great deal of real estate in Manhattan, that it was nested inside a Luxembourg trust, and that a single man appeared to direct its decisions. He named him. Nikolai Draven, 39, origin unclear, believed to have arrived in the United States from Eastern Europe in the late 1990s. The article went on to speculate about his connections, which were called rumored, and about his business methods, which were called aggressive. And then there was a paragraph about how 3 sources the writer had tried to contact had declined to be interviewed, and a 4th had. And the 4th had called him back the next day and asked, please, that he never print what had been said. The article ended there. Arya scrolled to the bottom. There was a small note from the editor. The writer had left the publication the month the article came out. The piece had been flagged in the archive as unverified. The editor noted that subsequent follow-ups had not been pursued at the writer's request. She sat on the edge of the tub for a long time. Then she went back to bed and lay with her phone face down on her chest and finally, near dawn, fell asleep. She dreamed about the waltz. She woke at 9. She had a shift at Rudy's at 10:30. Her hand was stiff and her feet still hurt, and she'd slept maybe 2 hours, total. And when she looked in the mirror above the bathroom sink, her face looked like somebody else's face. Older, not by much, just by enough. Rudy's Diner was on 9th Avenue between a laundromat and a place that sold knockoff phones. It had been there since 1973, and it was going to be there, Rudy liked to say, until the city pried it out of his cold, dead hands, which, given that Rudy was 74 and smoked 2 packs a day, might not be that long. The booths were red vinyl patched with black tape. The coffee was bad in a specific comforting way. The regulars knew her by name. She tied her apron with one hand, awkward, and Rudy came out of the back and saw the bandage and said, "Jesus Christ, Vance, what did you do?" "Dropped a tray." "At that fancy party?" "Yeah." "Did they pay you?" "Yeah, I think so. It should hit the account today." "Good, because if they didn't, I was going to go over there." "With what army, Rudy?" "My army. I got an army." "You have a cousin in Queens." "He's a big cousin." She laughed, and it was a real laugh this time. And the thing in her chest that had been tight since last night loosened a little, and she went to pour coffee for Mr. Abernathy at the counter, who had been drinking coffee at that counter every morning for 30 years, and who, Rudy swore, had never left a tip. The bell above the door jingled at 11:14. She knew before she turned. She knew because the entire diner went quiet, the same way the ballroom had gone quiet, and the 2 truck drivers in the corner booth stopped talking mid-sentence, and Mr. Abernathy, who never noticed anything, lowered his paper half an inch and looked over the top of it. She turned around. He was standing just inside the door, dark coat over a dark sweater, no tie, his hair a little damp from the drizzle outside. In the Velmont, he had looked like he was carved out of the building. Here, in the yellow fluorescent light of Rudy's, in front of the daily specials board with its crooked chalk letters, he looked enormous, like somebody had put a wolf in a kitchen. He didn't smile when he saw her. He just nodded, like they had an appointment. "Booth or counter," she heard herself say. "Whichever is yours." "They're all mine today." "Then wherever you'd like me." She pointed at the last booth, the one by the window. He walked to it. The truck drivers watched him go. He sat down. He was too big for the booth. His knees hit the table underneath. He didn't seem to mind. She picked up a menu. Her hands were not shaking, which surprised her. She carried the menu over. She put it in front of him. She set a glass of water down. The ice clinked. "Coffee?" "Please." "Cream, sugar?" "Black." She went back behind the counter. She poured him a coffee. Rudy watched her from the pass-through, eyebrows up. "You know that guy?" "I met him last night." "Uh-huh." Rudy's eyes moved past her over her shoulder at the booth. "He looks at you like he knows you." "He doesn't know me." "He looks at you like he does." She carried the coffee over. She set it down. He didn't touch it. "I said I'd like to see you again," he said. "I didn't mean you had to serve me. It's my job. It doesn't have to be right this minute. I have 7 other tables. Okay?" She left. She took an order at table 4. She refilled coffees at the counter. She cleared a plate. She bussed a booth. She did everything she always did. The diner slowly remembered how to make noise again. The truck drivers went back to talking. Mr. Abernathy raised his paper. The radio, which was always playing something old and crackly, played something old and crackly. She moved through it like she always did, her body on rails, her mind somewhere else entirely. He sat at the booth and drank his coffee and watched her. Not leering, not even steady. Just present. Like she was the only thing in the window he cared to look at. Every time she came back to refill his cup, he said thank you, and every time she asked if he wanted to order, he said not yet. After her 3rd pass, she finally said, "You're going to sit there all morning, aren't you?" "If that's all right." "It's a free country, sir." "Nikolai." "Nikolai." "Arya, I have a thing I want to say to you. And I've been sitting here trying to decide how to say it without sounding like a man who owns too many buildings, and I can't figure it out. So I'm just going to say it. Okay? You are in danger. She set the coffee pot down on the edge of the table, carefully, because her hand had started to shake after all. What does that mean? It means that a photograph of us was taken last night and by 6 a.m. This morning it had been forwarded to 4 men who I would very much prefer had not received it. It means that 3 people who were in that ballroom last night have already made telephone calls about you. It means that the name Arya Vance has been typed into a search engine 11 times in the last 9 hours by people whose searches I monitor. It means that you have, without intending to, and without deserving it, stepped into a room whose walls you could not previously see. You monitor people's searches. Some people's, yes. Jesus. I know how it sounds. Do you? I do. She sat down across from him. She didn't mean to. Her knees just gave out a little and the booth was there. She looked at him across the table. Up close, in the good light, she could see that his eyes were actually gray, not pale blue the way she'd thought last night. There was a line at the corner of his mouth that deepened when he was trying not to frown. Why would anybody care about me? She said. They don't. They care about me. And last night I did something in public that I have spent 20 years being very careful not to do in public. I let it matter. Let what matter? A person. The truck drivers were laughing at something. The radio was playing a song about a train going home. Rudy was frying eggs. I can't afford to be in danger, Arya said. I can't afford it. Literally. I don't have the money to move. My roommate is on the lease with me. I can't disappear from a job. I have a shift tomorrow. Her voice cracked. I have a life. It's a crappy life, but it's mine, and I can't just... I'm not asking you to disappear. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to let me put people around you for a little while. Quietly. You wouldn't know they were there unless you needed them. And I'm asking you to let me see you sometimes. In places where it can be seen that you are seen. I'm asking you to be visible with me. Why? Because the thing that makes you a target is the idea that hurting you could hurt me. The only way to diffuse that is to make hurting you unthinkably expensive. To make everybody who looked at that photograph last night understand that anyone who puts a hand on you will not survive the week. That's insane. Yes, that's movie stuff. No, I'm a waitress. I know. I don't go to parties. I don't live in a penthouse. I live on 52nd and 10th in a walk-up with a woman named Marisol who has a bad back and makes me tea when I come home sad. I owe $4,000 in rent. I don't have room in my life for... She gestured at him, helplessly. For whatever this is. I know. Then why are you here? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I made a mistake last night, he said. I made it in front of 300 witnesses, and I would make it again. And I am not going to compound it by leaving you alone to deal with the consequences. She stared at him. Was it a mistake? Yes. Dancing with me was a mistake. Dancing with you was the best thing I have done in public in 10 years. It was also a mistake. Both of those things are true at the same time. I am telling you the truth, Arya, because I can't protect you if I lie to you. Rudy was watching from the pass-through. He wasn't pretending not to. He had a spatula in his hand and he was holding it like a weapon. Arya held up a finger. I'm fine. Rudy scowled, but he went back to the eggs. What do you want me to do? She said. I want you to finish your shift. I want you to go home. I want you, tonight at 8, to be downstairs in front of your building. There will be a car. It will take you to dinner. We will eat dinner together in a place where people will see us. You will be home by 10. There will be 2 men across the street from your apartment tonight and every night this week. You will never see them unless something goes wrong, in which case you will suddenly see them very clearly. And what do you want from me? In exchange for what? For the men, for the dinner, for the protection, for all of it. He looked at her. Nothing, he said. Nothing. Nothing. That's not how the world works, Nikolai. It's how my world works. When I feel like it. I'm not going to sleep with you. He did not flinch. He did not smile. He just held her gaze, steady, the way a man holds a gaze when he knows what you're doing and does not take it personally. I didn't ask. I'm telling you so we're clear. We're clear. I mean it. I believe you. She took a breath. It shook going in. One dinner. One dinner. And if at the end of it I say I don't want any of it, the men, the car, any of it, you go away. I go away. And the danger. The danger doesn't. That's not fair. No. But it's true. It's true. She put her good hand flat on the table, the bandaged one she kept in her lap. Why me? He looked at her, that line at the corner of his mouth. I don't know yet. Wrong answer. It's the only honest one I have. She got up, she picked up the coffee pot. She walked away from the booth and went back to work. He sat there for another 20 minutes. He didn't order food. When he left, he put a $100 bill under the saucer of his coffee cup for a $2 check, and he said, "Goodbye, Arya," on the way to the door, and she didn't turn around, and the bell jingled, and he was gone. Rudy came out from the back. He picked up the 100. He looked at it. He looked at her. Arya. Don't. Arya. I said don't. Honey. She was holding a stack of menus and her hands were shaking so hard the menus were making noise. I don't know what to do, Rudy. I know. I don't know what to do. Come here. He came around the counter. Rudy, who was 74 and smelled like cigarettes and cooking oil, and who had yelled at her approximately once a week for 3 years, put his arms around her and she put her face into his shoulder and she stood there in her apron and cried for the second time in 12 hours. That a good man, he said softly, or a bad man? I don't know. He looks at you like a good man. He said he's bad. Men say a lot of things. He says the truth, Rudy. I can tell. Then that's a problem. I know. He held her for another second. Then he patted her back and let her go and he said, You want to go home. I'll cover. No. Vance, I want to work. I need to work. I need to stand up and move and not think about it. Then stop crying into my shirt. I just washed this shirt. You never wash that shirt. That's why I said I just washed it. She laughed, hiccup of a laugh. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist. She worked her shift. At 4, she walked home. It was raining lightly now. She kept her good hand in her jacket pocket and her bandaged one tucked against her stomach, and she walked the 14 blocks and tried to notice if anybody was following her. She didn't see anybody. She didn't see a lot of things, she realized. She didn't know what she was looking for. At 7:45, she was downstairs in front of her building in the only dress she owned that wasn't for work. It was dark green. It had been her mother's. The sleeves were a little long. She had put on lipstick this time. She had pulled her hair back and then let half of it down again because it looked too tight. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black car pulled to the curb. The driver got out. An older man, gray at the temples, a quiet face. He opened the back door for her. She got in. Nikolai was not inside. The driver closed the door and got back in. Good evening, Miss Vance. Hi. Mr. Draven will meet you at the restaurant. I apologize for the inconvenience. It's okay. My name is Yakov. If you ever need a car, anytime, any reason, you call this number. He handed a small white card over the seat. 1 number on it, nothing else. You don't give this number to anybody. Okay? Any hour, any reason. I understand. The restaurant was in a part of the city she had been in maybe twice in her life. A narrow stone building with no name over the door, just a brass plaque with a single letter on it. The driver didn't stop in front. He pulled into an alley beside it and a door opened, and a man in a dark suit helped her out, and she was walked through a kitchen full of white-jacketed cooks who did not look up, and up a back staircase, and through a hallway, and into a small private room with a single table set for 2 and a window looking out over a courtyard with a lemon tree in it. Nikolai stood up when she came in. He was wearing the same kind of dark coat he'd worn to the diner, only under it was a white shirt, very crisp, open at the collar. He had shaved. She noticed because it had left a tiny cut just under his jaw. A little line of red blotted. She felt something absurd move in her chest at the sight of the cut. Like, oh, he bleeds. I didn't think you'd come, he said. I almost didn't. What made you? I don't know. He pulled her chair out for her. She sat. He sat. You cut yourself shaving. He touched his jaw. He looked at his finger. So I did. Does the great Nikolai Draven not know how to shave? The great Nikolai Draven was distracted this evening. By what? By whether you would come. She didn't know what to do with that, so she looked at the menu. The menu was in French. She did not speak French. She set it down. I can't read this. I know. I asked them to bring us whatever's good tonight. I should have told you. I'm sorry. It's okay. A waiter came in. He poured water. He left. A door somewhere closed softly. Are we going to be bothered? She said. No. Nobody comes in this room unless I ring. So nobody will see us tonight after all. 3 people in the kitchen will see you. 2 at the door. The sommelier. The driver. Photographs of you leaving and entering the building will reach certain people by midnight, even though we're hidden. Especially because we're hidden. Because hiding means we matter. He looked at her across the table. That line at the corner of his mouth, which she was starting to realize was the closest thing he had to a real smile. Yes. You really thought this through. I really thought this through. The food came. It kept coming. Small plates, strange things, a soup the color of new grass, something with figs, something with lamb. He ate without ceremony. She ate slowly. She was not hungry exactly, but her body was, and she let her body handle it. They did not talk for a while. Then, over something with chocolate and salt that she did not have a name for, she said, Tell me about your sister. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. He put it down. No. You said it last night. You said that was why you helped me. I said that to a woman on the verge of shock. I should not have said it. But you did say it. I did. So tell me. He looked at her. He looked out the window at the lemon tree. He looked back at her. Her name was Tatiana. She was 19. This was a long time ago. I was not in a position to protect her then. I am in a position now. That's all. That's not all. It's what I'm willing to say. Okay? She let it go. She watched his hands, big hands, a ring on his right pinky, a small ring, silver, something engraved on it that she couldn't see. His knuckles were scarred. All of them. Little white lines, old and new. Can I ask you something else? Yes. Are you going to kill Julian Whitlock? He blinked. Once. No. Because of me, or because you weren't going to anyway. Because I have no reason to. He humiliated me. Yes. And that's not enough. No. He picked his fork up again. If the measure of who I kill were who humiliated somebody in front of me, the Velmont would have a much smaller guest list. I'm going to make his life difficult. I'm going to make sure his father knows. I'm going to make sure certain doors close to him. He will spend the next 5 years wondering why his world has gotten smaller, and he will never quite put it together. That is what I do to men like Julian. I don't kill them, I reduce them. That's almost worse. It's not even close to worse. It's just slower. She set her fork down. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked. You don't have to answer. If I am going to ask you to be visible with me, Arya, then I owe you the truth about what it is you are being visible with. You're telling me on purpose. Yes. So I know. Yes. So I can leave if I want to. Yes. You want me to leave? No. But you'll let me. He looked at her for a long time. The candle on the table made a slow flicker between them. I was told when I was 22 years old, he said, by a man who was teaching me what I do, that the one sure way to destroy yourself in this life is to let another person matter. I've lived by that for a very long time. And last night, I watched a young woman get pushed onto her knees by a boy whose father owes me money, and I found that I was already crossing the floor before I had made the decision to cross it, and I spent the rest of the night thinking about why. And I don't have an answer that's clean enough to give you. I have an answer that is ugly and partial and probably wrong, and it has to do with my sister, and it has to do with being 40 years old and tired, and it has to do with you specifically for reasons I do not understand and cannot justify. And what I can do is tell you the truth about that and let you decide what to do with it. She could hear her own heartbeat. I'm scared, she said. I know. I'm scared of you. I know. But I'm also... She stopped. She did not want to say it. She made herself say it. I'm also not scared of you, which scares me more. I know. Stop saying I know. Sorry. Say something else. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Anything. He was quiet. I would like to see you again tomorrow, he said. Why? Because I want to. And because I am not going to give you a reason that sounds like strategy when the truth is that I want to. The door opened. The waiter brought coffee. He left. The room was quiet again. Arya stirred her coffee even though she hadn't put anything in it. Okay, she said. Okay. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. But Nikolai. Yes. If you lie to me, ever, even once, about anything, I walk. I don't care who's watching. I don't care what the photograph means. I walk. And I don't come back, and you don't follow me, and you take your men off my street, and you leave me alone. Do you understand? Yes. Say it. If I lie to you, you walk. And you let me. And I let you. Good. She drank her coffee. Her hand was not shaking anymore. She did not know when that had stopped. She looked at him across the table, this man the whole city was afraid of, who had told her the truth twice in 2 days, and she thought, I'm going to regret this. And under that thought was another thought, quieter, steadier, that she did not yet have the courage to look at directly. Outside in the courtyard, the lemon tree moved in a wind she could not hear. And somewhere in the city, 3 men in a room she would never see were looking at a photograph of a black car pulling up to a narrow stone building with no name, and one of them was saying very softly, So, he's really doing this. And another one was lighting a cigarette with a hand that did not quite shake, and the third, the oldest, the one who had known Nikolai Draven since Nikolai had been a boy, with a different name in a different country, said nothing at all, only set down his glass and pushed it a 1/4 inch away from himself. The way a man pushes away a thing he has decided to be finished with. Arya Vance drank her coffee and did not know any of that. She only knew that across the table a dangerous man was watching her with an expression she did not have a name for, and that tomorrow she was going to see him again, and that when she went back down the alley and got into the black car and leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes, the driver Yakov would say nothing the whole ride home. And when he pulled up to her building, he would watch in the rearview mirror until she was inside and the light went on in her 6th-floor window. And only then would he pull away, and she would lie in her bed and stare at the ceiling and press her palm, the scarred one, against her chest, and feel the stitches pulling, and feel, underneath that, the strange, slow, deliberate beat of a heart that had, for the first time in a very long time, started paying attention. The heart that had started paying attention did not sleep much that week. The heart that had started paying attention did not sleep much that week. Tomorrow became tomorrow, and then another tomorrow, and by Friday, Arya had stopped counting the days and started counting the meals. 5 of them now, in 5 different rooms. A lunch in a glass-walled cafe above the river where he'd ordered her a sandwich she could not pronounce, and then watched her eat it like the sandwich was a report he was reviewing. A coffee at a place in the village where the barista had set down Nikolai's cup without charging him, and then avoided looking at him for the entire hour they sat there. A walk through a small gallery on the Lower East Side where a woman with gray hair and a bun had opened the door for them before hours and given them the place to themselves, and where Arya had stood in front of a painting of a woman in a red coat and felt Nikolai's quiet a few feet behind her, watching her watch it, and had felt, for a bright and private moment, that she was the painting he had come to see. Each time Yakov drove. Each time the car was already at the curb when she came down, the door already opening, the city already pulling back from her a little, giving her space, the way a tide pulls out before something big comes in. Marisol had figured it out by Wednesday. She was not an idiot. She had watched Arya change her clothes 3 nights in a row, watched her check the window at 7:55 each evening, watched the same black car pull up at 8 o'clock exactly, watched Arya come home flushed and quiet, with her good hand pressed against her bandaged one, like she was keeping a secret warm. On Wednesday night, Marisol had been waiting up. Who is he? Mari. Who is he, Arya? And don't tell me nobody, because nobody does not send a car with a driver who wears a suit to my curb. Arya sat on the couch. She took off her shoes, she rubbed her feet. She thought about lying. She thought about lying for about 4 seconds. His name is Nikolai Draven. Okay. He's the man he was at the party when I cut my hand. He's the one he helped me at the party. Helped you how? Made the guy who hurt me apologize. Publicly, in front of everybody. Okay. Marisol folded her legs under her. And now what? Now he takes me to dinner. And then what? He takes me home. And then what? And then I lie in bed and don't sleep. Arya. He hasn't touched me, Mari. Not once. He pulls out my chair. He opens my door. He says goodnight. That's it. That's worse. I know. That's so much worse. I know. Marisol was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "What does he do? For a living?" Arya looked at her. Marisol looked back. "Oh," Marisol said softly. "Oh, honey. It's not like that. It's not like what? It's not like the movies. He doesn't." "Arya, what does he do for a living?" "I don't know exactly, but you know enough." "Yes." Marisol closed her eyes. She breathed out through her nose. When she opened her eyes again, she was not angry, which would have been easier. She was just tired, which was harder. "Listen to me. I love you. I love you like you are my blood. So I'm going to say this one time, and then I'm going to shut up, because you are a grown woman, and what you do with your life is your life. Are you listening?" "I'm listening." "Men like that do not turn into good men, not the way you want them to. They turn into good men with you, for you, in the small room where it is you and them. And outside that room they do not change. And when the outside of the room comes in, and it will come in, Arya, it always comes in. When it comes in, you are going to be standing in the middle of it, and you will not be able to run because you will love him. You will love him. That is what is going to happen. That is what is happening already. And I'm telling you this not to stop you, because I know I can't, but so that when it happens, you will remember I told you." Arya did not answer for a long time. "I know," she said finally, small. "I know you know. I don't know how to stop. I know that too." They sat there on the couch. The TV was muted. Something was happening on it. A cooking show. A woman was laughing silently at a chef who had dropped something. "Mari." "Yeah. If I'm wrong, and he's not, if he's just what they say he is, will you still—" "Shut up. What do I look like? Of course I'll still." "Okay." "Dumbass." "Okay." They didn't talk about it again that week. Marisol went back to pretending the black car was a weather event. But she started locking the second lock on the door at night, the deadbolt that had been broken for 3 years that somehow, quietly, had been fixed on Tuesday by a man in a gray shirt who had said only that the super had sent him, who had not charged anything, who had left before Arya could ask his name. "2 men across the street from your apartment," he had said. She had stopped looking for them after the second night, not because they weren't there, because they were. It was on the 5th dinner, a Saturday, that things changed. He had taken her to an Italian place near Gramercy. This one was not hidden. This one was for being seen. A corner table by the window, candles, a violinist who came around at some point and played something soft over by the bar. Arya had worn a dress he had sent that afternoon, not new, which had surprised her, but clearly expensive, a dark blue thing with a high neck and a small note in the box that said only, "If you want. If not, anything." She had worn it because she wanted to, which was a sentence that still felt strange in her mouth. They ordered. He talked a little about his week. He didn't talk about work, not the real work, but he talked about other things. A building he was restoring uptown. A horse he owned, which had surprised her into a laugh. An old woman in Queens he visited twice a month who had, he said, taught him English when he was 17, and who still corrected his pronunciation of certain words, and made him eat a second helping of everything, even though he did not want it. "You visit an old lady in Queens," Arya said, "twice a month. The big scary Mafia boss goes to Queens to eat too much food with an old lady." "I did not say I was a Mafia boss. You did not say you weren't." "Fair." He was smiling, the real one, the small one at the corner of his mouth, that she had started to live for a little. Not that she would have admitted it out loud. "Is she the only family you have?" He set down his wine. "That's a heavy question for an appetizer." "Sorry." "Don't be." "Yes, for practical purposes. My parents are dead. My sister is dead. A few cousins I don't speak to. The woman in Queens is not family by blood. She is what I have." "What was her name?" "Arya." "What was your sister's name?" He looked at her. a long time. Tatiana, he said. Tatiana. Yes. How did she? Not tonight. Okay. He picked up his wine, he took a sip, he set it back down. I'll tell you one day, he said. I owe you that. Not tonight. Okay. The waiter came, plates came. They ate. A second bottle of wine arrived. Iria drank more of it than she meant to, not because she was trying to, just because it was there, and because she was, for the first time in 6 days, almost relaxed, and because a man who frightened half the city was listening to her talk about her mother as if her mother were more interesting than anyone else he had ever met. She told him about growing up in a town in upstate New York that was mostly a gas station and a hardware store. She told him about her father leaving when she was 6, which she did not usually tell people, and about her mother getting sick when she was 19 and taking care of her until she was 21, and then her mother dying and the house being gone because of the bills, and then the city and Rudy's and Marisol, and a lot of years in between of just trying. She told him she had wanted to go to college to study, of all things, architecture, which he did not laugh at, which she had half expected him to. Why architecture? He said. Because buildings last. He nodded, slowly, like she had said something important, and did not ask her to explain it. It was somewhere after that, after the second bottle, that she said, "Why don't you touch me?" His eyes came up to hers. "Sorry," she said. "Sorry, that was... Forget it, the wine." "You mean it?" Yes, I mean it, but I wasn't planning to say it." He set his glass down. "Do you want me to touch you?" "I don't know." "Then it's the right answer, isn't it?" "What is?" "That I don't." She looked at him across the little table. The candle was between them. His face was half in warm light and half in shadow, and she could see the cut under his jaw was healed now, just a thin line. "Nikolai." "Yes." "When it changes, for me, when I know, will you know too?" "Yes." "How?" "Because you'll tell me." "What if I can't tell you?" "Then I'll wait." "How long?" "However long." She looked down at her wine. Her throat was doing something. "That's not fair," she whispered. "What isn't?" "You. Saying things like that, like it's nothing." "It isn't nothing." "No, it's not." He reached across this table. He put his hand over hers. His hand was warm and his palm was broad, and the scars on his knuckles were a kind of language she was beginning, very slowly, to learn to read. He did not grip her. He just rested his hand over hers. That was all. But it was the first time in 5 dinners and 6 days that he had touched her on purpose, and she felt it go up her arm and into her chest and settle somewhere behind her ribs like a small, warm animal. And she thought, this is how it starts. This is the thing Marisol was talking about. And then the door of the restaurant opened. She felt the room change before she saw why. A little tightening. A waiter across the room stopped, tray half raised. The violinist, who had been playing something soft over by the bar, let a note go long and then went still, his bow hovering over the strings. The maitre d' at the front had taken 3 quick steps toward the door and then, very obviously, stopped himself. Nikolai did not turn around. His hand stayed on hers. But his eyes changed. They became flat. Arya had never seen his eyes do that, and she understood, looking at him, that she had not seen him yet. Not really, not the whole thing. She had seen a man who knelt on a marble floor and a man who corrected his own pronunciation of English, and a man who visited an old woman in Queens, and now, across a small candlelit table, she was getting her first look at the other one, the one everybody else in the ballroom had been looking at. "Who is it?" she said, soft. "Don't turn around." "Who is it?" "A man named Grigor Volkov, and 4 of his people." "Don't turn around, Arya. Just look at me. Look at me and drink your wine." "I can't drink my wine, Nikolai." "Then hold it. Hold the glass. Breathe." She picked up the glass. She held it. She did not drink. Her hand under his was cold now. He turned his hand and closed his fingers around hers, gently, and she understood that he was not holding her hand for her benefit anymore. He was holding it so that Grigor Volkov, whoever Grigor Volkov was, could see that he was holding it. "Who is he?" she whispered. "A man who used to work for me. A long time ago. He does not work for me anymore. Is he? He's not going to hurt you. Not here. Not tonight. But he came here. Yes. On purpose. Yes. Why? To ask me a question. What question? His eyes moved past her just for a second and tracked something across the room. He waited. He looked back at her. Whether you're real, he said. Footsteps. Behind her. Slow, deliberate. A man sat down at the table next to theirs, a small two-top that had been empty all evening, and put his coat over the chair across from him, and waved the waiter away with a gesture that did not leave room for objection. Arya could see him in her peripheral vision. She did not turn her head. He was older than Nikolai, maybe 50. Heavy through the shoulders, but not fat, not soft. The heaviness of a man who had been a fighter before he was anything else. Silver at his temples. A broken nose that had been broken a long time ago. Expensive coat, cheap watch. The kind you could buy on a street corner, worn on purpose, she somehow understood, to mean something. He had the kind of face that if you saw it on the subway, you would very carefully not make eye contact with. He smiled. At nobody. At the room. Nikolai Leonidovich, he said. His voice was warm. That was the worst part. It has been too long. Nikolai did not look at him. Grigor. Your girl is beautiful. Don't. I say a compliment. A man cannot compliment. It's a new world, Nikolai. A man cannot even say a pretty girl is pretty. You can say what you want. Not to her, not in front of her. You speak to me. Ah, so it is like that. It is like that. Grigor Volkov leaned back in his chair. He put one arm along the back of it. He studied Nikolai the way a man studies a chessboard he has played before. I saw the photograph, he said. We all saw the photograph. It is a beautiful photograph. You look happy. That is what I said to Petrov. I said, look at him. Look at his face. He looks happy. I have not seen him look happy in 20 years. Petrov said, yes, he is happy. So what? I said, Petrov, you are an idiot. A happy Nikolai is the most dangerous animal in this city. A happy Nikolai has something to lose. Grigor. And then I said, Petrov, wait. Because I looked again at the photograph. And I looked at the girl. And I thought, where do I know this face? Where have I seen this face? And then I thought of Tatiana. The candle between them did not move, but something in the room did. Arya's hand under Nikolai's tightened without her meaning it to. He did not squeeze back. He did not move at all. Get up. Nikolai, please. Get up from that chair. I have not finished speaking. You have. I came to pay my respects. To the young lady. It is only polite. Grigor, if you speak my sister's name again in front of her, if you speak it again in this room, I will not wait for you to leave the restaurant. The warmth drained out of Grigor Volkov's face, not all at once. In pieces. The smile went first, then his eyes changed. He did not look afraid. Arya understood that he was not a man who got afraid. He looked for the first time like a man who had remembered something he had briefly allowed himself to forget. He raised both hands, small gesture, peace. As you wish. Leave. I came to say one thing, only one thing. I say it to you, not to her. Say it and go. There is a meeting, Thursday next. You know the place? It has been called by the council. Your presence is requested, not optional. Requested. Noted. They want to discuss the photograph, among other things. Let them. Nikolai. Grigor's voice softened. It was almost sad, which was the worst thing it could have been. You cannot be in love and be in this life. You know this. I did not make this rule. You did not make this rule. It is older than both of us. Get out of my restaurant, Grigor. It is not your restaurant. Tonight it is. Grigor looked at him for a long moment. Then he stood. He did not rush. He put on his coat, slowly, one sleeve at a time. He adjusted the lapel. He glanced down at Arya. He did not, to his credit or because he was afraid, meet her eyes. Miss Vance. She did not answer. I wish you a safe evening. He walked away. His 4 men who had been at the bar, who Arya had not even noticed, peeled off from it one by one as he passed them and followed him out. The door closed behind them. It took a long time for the room to remember it could make noise. The violinist resumed playing. It was a different song, softer. Nikolai's hand was still on hers. Arya, I'm here. Look at me. She looked at him. His face had come back. Mostly. The flatness was fading out of his eyes, and the man she had been having dinner with was returning in pieces. But something had changed. A door had opened, and something had come through it and would not be put back. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Do you want to go home? Yes. Your home or mine? What does mine mean? It means a building I own. Very safe. A small apartment I keep for certain purposes. You would have the whole floor to yourself. No one comes in or out without my permission. Yakov sleeps in the next room. How long? A week? 2. Until what? Until I finish the meeting on Thursday, and a few conversations after it. What happens in those conversations? I make it clear in a way that cannot be mistaken that what he just did will not happen again. What if I said I want to go to my home, my real home, with Marisol? Then I take you there, and the 2 men on your street become 4, and Yakov sleeps in his car downstairs, and you do not go to Rudy's this week. Rudy's? Not this week. Nikolai, I have rent. Rent is handled. Since when? He did not answer. Since when, Nikolai? Since Tuesday. I told you I would not lie. I did not tell you I would not do this. I paid your landlord 6 months. Not as a gift, as a logistical matter. I cannot have you out on the street because of a man I cannot control. It was not romantic, it was operational. She stared at him. Jesus, I can undo it. You cannot undo 6 months of rent to my landlord. I can give you the cash equivalent, and you can treat the rent as a loan. Nikolai, I am telling you the truth, Arya. You said if I lied, you walked. I am not lying. I paid your rent. I did not tell you. That is a thing I did that you did not ask me to do. You can be angry. You should be angry. You are allowed to be angry. I am angry. Good. Don't say good. Sorry. She pulled her hand out from under his. He let her. She put both of her hands in her lap. She looked down at the table. The candle had burned low. Take me home, she said. My home. Marisol's home. The 4th floor walk-up. Okay? And I need a night. I need a night to think. Don't come tomorrow. Don't send a car tomorrow. Tomorrow I go to work and I live my life and I do not hear from you. Understand? Understood. Monday. Monday I'll call you. I don't have a number for you to call. He took out a card. Black, plain, 1 number on it, nothing else. He slid it across the table. Only one of these exists, he said. Nobody else has this number. Dramatic. Yes. Fine. She took the card. She put it in her bag. They did not finish dinner. He paid. The violinist watched them leave. The maitre d' held the door. The black car was already there because the black car was always already there. And Yakov had his hands on the wheel like he had been holding that wheel for hours, which maybe he had. They did not speak on the ride home. He sat across from her in the back seat and watched her face and did not try to touch her. When they pulled up to her building, he got out with her. She had not expected that. He walked her to the door of her building and then up 4 flights of stairs because he did not trust the hallway, and to her apartment door, and he waited just at the far edge of the landing while she got her key out. She turned at the door. I'm not running from you. I know. I need to breathe. I know. Tonight, when that man came in, your face changed. Yes. I didn't recognize you for a second. I know. Is that face going to come back a lot? He looked at her. He did not answer for a long time. Yes, he said. Okay. Okay? I said okay. I didn't say I liked it. I said I heard it. Okay. Good night, Nikolai. Good night, Arya. She went inside. She closed the door. She locked it. She locked the second lock, the one that had mysteriously been fixed. She stood with her back against the door and listened to the sound of him walking away, his footfalls on the stairs, the soft click of the building's front door at the bottom, the faint hum of the car pulling away from the curb. Then she walked into the living room. Marisol was asleep on the couch, the TV still going, a half-eaten bowl of cereal on the coffee table. Arya stood over her for a minute, watching her breathe, looking at the deadbolt on the door and the fixed chain and the new, heavier lock that she had not noticed before. She thought about Grigor Volkov's voice saying her own last name, and her stomach turned over. She went into the bedroom. She did not turn on the light. She sat on the edge of the bed in her borrowed blue dress, and she took the black card out of her bag and she held it between her fingers, and she looked at it, the single phone number, no name. She thought about leaving. She thought seriously for the first time about getting on a bus tomorrow morning, going somewhere, anywhere. She had a cousin in Ohio. She had not seen her cousin in 11 years. She could be in Ohio by nightfall. She could tell Marisol to come. Marisol had a sister in Florida. They could go to Florida. They could be gone by Monday. He had said he would let her walk. Then she thought about the face he had made when he said his sister's name. Tatiana. One word, one time, and something had moved in him that she had seen move once before, when he was kneeling on a marble floor in front of her, asking her own name. She thought about Grigor Volkov saying, "A happy Nikolai has something to lose." She thought, "That's me. I'm the something." And then she thought very quietly, in a voice she almost did not recognize as her own, "I don't want to go to Ohio." She put the card in the drawer of her bedside table. She closed the drawer. She did not lock it. She lay back on the bed in her dress, and she did not sleep for a long time. But when she finally did, she did not dream about Julian Whitlock, and she did not dream about Grigor Volkov, and she did not dream about the waltz. She dreamed about a lemon tree in a small courtyard, and a man sitting across from her with a little cut under his jaw, and she dreamed that when she reached across the table and touched the cut, very carefully, with one fingertip, he closed his eyes like somebody who had been cold for a long time and had just finally felt the sun. She did not call on Monday. She made it to Tuesday afternoon. She was proud of that, in a small way, the way you are proud of holding your breath a second longer than you thought you could. She went to Rudy's on Sunday and Monday both, even though he had told her not to, because she did not want to be the kind of woman whose life got rearranged by a phone call from a man in a coat. She took orders. She poured coffee. She listened to Mr. Abernathy tell her, for the third time in as many weeks, about the time he had met Sinatra in an elevator. She walked home both nights through a light rain and tried and failed not to look at the dark sedan parked half a block down on the opposite side of the street with two men in it who did not appear to be doing anything except being parked. On Tuesday around 2, between the lunch rush and the dinner prep, Rudy came out of the back and put a plate of eggs down in front of her at the counter and said, "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "I know. Eat anyway." She ate. The eggs were good. Rudy's eggs were always good. He had the kind of hands that she thought could have done almost anything in another life and had instead done this and meant it. "You look like you haven't slept," he said. "I haven't." "That man?" "Sort of. You going to see him again?" "I don't know." He watched her for a minute. Then he went back into the kitchen. She finished the eggs. She put the plate in the bus tub. She went to the bathroom in the back and she took her phone out of her apron pocket and she dialed the number on the black card, and before she could change her mind, she pressed call. It rang twice. "Arya." "Hi." "Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm at work. I just wanted to say, you are not in danger right now." "I know." "Nothing has happened." "I know. I just..." "Take your time." She leaned against the tile wall. The bathroom smelled like disinfectant and old coffee and a lemon air freshener Rudy refused to replace because, he said, the smell of lemon calmed his nerves. "I'm in," she said. The line was quiet. "In?" "I thought about it all weekend. I thought about running. I had a whole plan. My cousin in Ohio. A bus. I even looked up the times." "And?" "And I don't want to go to Ohio." Another pause. "Okay. But I have rules." "Okay. I'm writing them down. On a napkin. In a bathroom at Rudy's. So you know how serious I am." She heard something that might have been a laugh. A very small one. "Go ahead." 1. No more paying things without telling me. Not rent, not a bill, not a sandwich. You want to give me something, you ask first, and I get to say no. And if I say no, you do not do the thing. Not one time. Agreed. 2. No more moving me around the city in cars without asking. If you want me to come somewhere, you call. You tell me where. I say yes or no. Yakov can still drive me, but I am not a package. Agreed. 3. No more disappearing for a whole week. If you're going into a meeting, a thing, wherever, if something's happening, you tell me, as much as you can. Even if all you can say is, I'm going to be dark for 2 days, that's what you say. I'm not a child. I can handle being scared. I cannot handle being in the dark. Agreed? 4. I'm listening. When you're ready to tell me about your sister, you tell me. I'm not going to ask again, but you owe me that, eventually. Not tonight, not this month, whenever. But you told me her name was Tatiana at a dinner you knew I was going to remember forever, and you don't get to just leave her there and walk away. So when you can, you do. He was quiet for a long time. Agreed. 5. Yes. This is the last one. Okay? If you ever have to choose between keeping me safe and staying you, I mean, the you that I'm... She stopped. She swallowed. The you that I'm getting to know. If you ever have to choose between those two things, I need you to choose you. I will take the risk. I will take being scared. I'd rather be scared with you than safe with some other man wearing your face. There was a longer pause this time, long enough that she almost asked if he was still there. Arya. Yes. That one is harder. I know. I'll try. Try is okay. Try is what I'm asking. Come to dinner tonight. Where? My home. She hesitated. Yakov will drive you. Is it safe? It is the safest place in this city. Okay? 8. 8. She hung up. She put the phone back in her apron. She stood in the bathroom for another minute, looking at her own face in the spotted mirror, at the dark under her eyes and the shape of her mouth, and the small, unfamiliar thing happening in her chest. And then she went back out and worked the rest of her shift. His home was not, as it turned out, a penthouse in some glass tower with a helipad on the roof. She had pictured something like that, half because of movies and half because she had not been able to picture anything else. Yakov drove her to an old stone building in the West Village, 4 stories, a black door, a small brass plate by the bell with no name on it. A narrow street, trees down the middle of the block, a woman walking a tiny dog at the far end, the kind of block where a child could have played. He opened the door himself. Come in. She came in. The entryway was not what she had expected either. Warm wood floors, a hallway lined with books, a small painting of a horse at the far end, a staircase going up. It smelled like a house, not a building, like somebody lived there. She had not realized until she walked in that she had been braced for a showroom. This is where you live. This is where I live. It's nice. It was my mother's taste. She never lived here. I built it the way she would have. Oh. He took her coat. He hung it on a hook that had been carved by somebody with patience. He led her down the hallway, past the books, into a small dining room with a round table and 2 chairs and a fireplace that was actually lit, not for show. There was food already on the table, not fancy, chicken, roasted potatoes, a salad, a bottle of red wine, opened, breathing. Did you cook this? I did. Nikolai. You said no more surprises. I warned you on the phone that I was cooking. You did not. I said come to dinner. You did not say who was making dinner. Ah. The first rule, Nikolai, on day 1. Sit down, Arya. She sat. Sat. He poured the wine. Is it any good? The wine? The chicken. I don't know yet. I only cook this one thing. I cook it for Pani Helena in Queens, and she tells me every time that it is not as good as hers, and she is right. So probably no. It is probably not any good. Why did you cook it? Because you said no more paying things without asking. And a restaurant is paying a thing. And I wanted to feed you tonight, so I thought, I will make what I can make. She looked at him across the table. The firelight did something to his face. It softened the sharp parts. It made him look for a second like a man who had grown up somewhere quiet. Pani Helena taught you this? Yes. In Queens? Yes. And she always says it's not as good as hers. Always. So you keep making it? Yes. Why? Because one day I would like to make it and have her taste it and not be able to say that, and she will not say it, and then I will know. That's sweet. It is not sweet. It is competitive. It's sweet, Nikolai. He shook his head, but the corner of his mouth did the thing. They ate. The chicken was, in fact, good. She told him so. He did not believe her. She told him again. He shrugged in a way that meant, "You are being kind," which is also a thing I did not know people did for me. After dinner, he took her into the library. That was the only word for it. A room off the hallway with books from floor to ceiling, a leather couch, 2 armchairs, a window that looked out on a small walled garden where a single bare tree stood in the middle of the stone. He built up the fire in there too, which was different from the dining room fire and also real. And she sat on the couch and watched him do it. His jacket off now, his sleeves rolled to the elbow, and she saw, for the first time, the scars on his forearms. There were many of them, old ones, thin and silver. One newer one on the inside of his left wrist that was puckered and dark, and had obviously been deep. She did not ask. He sat down across from her in one of the armchairs. He did not take the couch. He took the chair deliberately so there was space between them. He was very careful, she was starting to notice, to always put space between them that she could close or not close as she chose. "I'm going to tell you about my sister." She looked up. "You said you didn't have to." "I said I would. You gave me 4 months. I'm taking 1 week. Nikolai." "Listen, please." She listened. Tatiana was 3 years younger than me. We grew up in a city that does not exist anymore, not the way it was. Our father was a man who worked with certain other men. He was not anyone important. He was a driver. He was loyal. One night the men he drove for had a disagreement with other men, and our father was in the car when the disagreement became a thing more than a disagreement. He did not come home. I was 15. Tatiana was 12. Our mother did what she could for 3 more years, and then her heart gave out one afternoon in the kitchen, just stopped. No warning. I came home and she was on the floor with flour on her hands. "Nikolai, let me finish." Okay, I was 18. Tatiana was 15. I had been by that point running errands for the same men my father had driven for. They had, in their way, treated us well. School fees, food in the winter. They gave me money for our mother's funeral. When she died, they gave me work. Real work. I was good at it. I was good at it in a way that surprised me. By the time I was 21, I was a man the older men asked opinions from. By 23, I had my own people. Tatiana was 19. She was beautiful. She was not like me. She laughed. She wanted to be a teacher. She had a boy she liked from the school down the road. A nice boy. A boy whose father sold bread. She used to bring him home and make me sit at the table with them and stare at him to scare him. And he would be polite, and she would laugh at me after he left. Are you picturing her? Mocha. I'm picturing her. Good. Keep picturing her. Because there is going to be a part of this story where you are going to want to not picture her, and I need you to picture her anyway. Okay, when I was 24, I made a mistake. The same kind of mistake I made last week at the Velmont. I let something matter. A woman. It does not matter who. It ended. She was not hurt. It ended because I was not ready for it. But in the time that it was happening, certain other men noticed that Nikolai Draven was a man who, when he was paying attention to a woman, was a man who was not paying attention to other things. And they filed that information, the way such men do. Nikolai, I'm going to tell you what happened to Tatiana. She nodded. There was a man named Lev Kasyanov. He ran a part of the city that I had been given, by the older men, the right to run instead. I had taken it from him in a negotiation. I had not killed him. I had not humiliated him. I had taken something that was his because I had been told to, and I had let him keep his face, which I thought was generous. I was 24, Arya. I was a boy. I thought that was how you made peace. You took the thing, and you left the face. What did he do? He took Tatiana off the street on a Thursday afternoon. She was walking home from the school where she had just started teaching reading to 6-year-olds. He kept her for 2 days. I did not know she was gone until late Friday night, because she had told my aunt she was going to stay over with her friend from the school, and my aunt had not checked. On Saturday morning, he sent me a photograph. On Sunday morning, he sent me another one. On Monday morning, a man rang my doorbell and handed me a package. and the package was my sister, and she was alive, and she was not. He stopped. He looked at the fire. She lived another 11 months, he said. She did not speak in that time, not to me, not to my aunt, not to the boy whose father sold bread, who came every day for 6 months and sat with her and read to her from a book she did not look at. At the end of 11 months, she walked out into a lake near a house we had in the country, in the winter, and she did not come back. The fire popped. Arya's hand was over her mouth. She did not remember putting it there. I killed Lev Kasyanov on a Wednesday, Nikolai said. I killed his 3 sons on the Thursday. I killed his cousin on the Friday. I killed a man who had driven for him, and a man who had slept in his house, and a man who had laughed at a joke of his at a card game in March. I killed everyone I could find who had been in the room when the decision was made. And then, because I was not sure, I killed 3 men who had only heard about the decision afterward. I killed 11 people in 4 days. I was 25 years old, and when it was done, I had lunch with the old man who had taught me this life, and he asked me what I had learned, and I told him. I told him I had learned that you cannot let anyone matter, that you can have a sister, or you can have a life in this world, but you cannot have both. He smiled at me. He was proud of me. He said, "Now you understand." And I went home, and I slept for the first time in a month, and I lived by that rule for 16 years. Until a Thursday night 2 weeks ago, until I walked into a ballroom and a boy in a tuxedo was standing over a waitress on her knees, and she had a cut on her hand, and I thought about Tatiana in the lake. And I thought, no, not tonight, not in my ballroom, and I broke the rule. Nikolai, I am not going to tell you that I can protect you. I am going to tell you that I can try. I have failed at this once, and she was the most important person in the world to me, and I failed, and she walked into a lake. I'm not going to lie to you about what kind of man you are sitting with. I'm a man who breaks his own rules, and when I break them, people die. Usually the wrong people. I'm telling you this because you said no lies. And I'm telling you this because before you walk any further into this room with me, you should know what room you are walking into. Arya was crying. She had not meant to. The tears had just started somewhere in the middle of the part about the boy whose father sold bread and had not stopped. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Why did you break it? I told you at the dinner. That wasn't the whole answer. He looked at her. No. What's the whole answer? I don't have one. I have pieces. You looked at me in the ballroom with a piece of glass in your hand, and you were afraid of me, and you were angry at me, and you were a stranger, and you were... I don't know the word. You were not pretending. Everyone pretends in that room. You were not pretending. You were bleeding, and you were afraid, and you were angry, and you were not performing any of it. And I had not seen a person not perform something in so long that I had forgotten what it looked like. That is part of it. What else? You said no to the money. What? In the green room, when I asked if you needed money. You said no. You did not hesitate. You were a woman who owed $4,000 in rent, and you said no to a man who was holding out a blank check because you could see the check for what it was. I have been in rooms with senators who would have said yes. Cardinals, philanthropists. You said no. And for a moment in that room, Arya, I looked at you and I thought, this one is not for sale. And that is such a rare thing that it stopped me. It stopped me in a way I did not know I could still be stopped. Nikolai, I am not finished. Okay? And you danced with me. You did not know how. You stepped on my foot. You bled a little through the bandage. You were terrified. And you did it anyway because I asked you to. And you trusted a stranger more than you should have. And I felt, for the length of one piece of music, like I was a person being touched by a person, not a thing being touched by a thing. Do you understand what I am telling you? Yes. You're asking me why. That is my why. It is not a good reason. I know it is not a good reason. A good reason would be something about how I saw your soul or how I recognized my fate. I did not. I saw a woman who did not pretend, who said no to money, and who let me put my hand on her waist for 3 minutes, and I walked off that floor and I did not know it yet, but I was a different man. And when I went home that night, I sat in this chair, in this room, and I looked at the fire for a long time, and I thought, I am in trouble. You are in trouble. I am. I'm in trouble too. I know. We are both in trouble. Yes. She got up. She did not think about it. She got up off the couch, and she crossed the 3 feet between them, and she knelt down in front of his chair, the way he had knelt in front of her 2 weeks ago in a ballroom. And she put her good hand on his knee, and she reached up with her other hand, the one with the thin white line across the palm, and she put her fingers very carefully on his face, along his jaw, where the little cut from shaving had been, which had healed now, but which she remembered. He closed his eyes. She had guessed he might, and he did, exactly like the dream. Nikolai. Yes. I'm going to kiss you now. I want you to know before I do it, because I think you've been waiting a long time for something to just happen to you that you didn't plan, and I don't want to be a thing that happens to you. I want to be a thing you know is happening. Okay? Okay. She kissed him. It was not a movie kiss. It was a small kiss. A careful one. His mouth was warm and his breath caught when she touched her lips to his, a small intake of air like a man who has just been reminded that he can breathe. His hand came up, slow, and rested at the back of her head, light, barely touching, giving her the choice. She leaned in a little more. He kissed her back, and it was not smooth. Neither of them were smooth. Her nose bumped against his, and she laughed against his mouth. A broken little laugh, and he laughed too, low, under his breath. And she felt the laugh travel through her chest like a struck bell. When she pulled back, his forehead stayed against hers for a second. Arya. Yeah. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Any of it. Neither do I. Okay? We'll figure it out. Okay. She got up. She sat on the arm of his chair instead of going back to the couch. He put an arm around her waist, loose, not possessive, just there, and she let her hand rest on his shoulder, and they watched the fire for a long time without talking. After a while, she said, "The meeting on Thursday." "Yes." "Tell me." "It will be in a place I have been 1,000 times. It will be Grigor. It will be 2 others like him. It will be an old man named Vadim who taught me what I do, who does not approve of the photograph. They will ask me to stop. They will frame it as a favor. They will tell me that loving something is a luxury I have not earned. They will tell me to send you away. What will you say? I will tell them no. How? Politely, the first time. And after that? After that depends on them. Do you think there will be an after that? Yes. Am I allowed to ask what the after that looks like? You can ask. What does it look like? A war. A small one. Not a loud one. A quiet one. In offices, in restaurants, in parking garages. Over 18 months, maybe 2 years. A war you will mostly not see. I will look the same to you. I will come home the same. I will cook the chicken. I will be in this chair in the evening. You will hear things on the news sometimes, and you will wonder if it was me, and sometimes it will have been, and sometimes it won't have. And you will have to learn to not ask. Do you understand? Yes? You will have to learn a whole new way of being in the world. You will have to stop using certain phones, certain credit cards, certain streets. You will have to know Yakov's voice from a stranger's voice over a closed door. You will have to decide, every day, not to walk out the front door of this building and keep walking. Do you understand? Yes. And when it is over, I am going to try to be a different kind of man. She turned and looked at him. What kind? The kind I think you are asking me to be. The kind who does not need this anymore. Who rebuilds. Who steps out of certain parts of this world and keeps only the parts that are legitimate. It will take years, Arya. Years. This is not a thing a man like me does in 6 months. I will fail at it. I will fall back into old habits. I will call people I should not call and make decisions I should not make. But I would like to try. If we are a thing, then I would like to try. Nikolai. Yes. I don't want you to try for me. What? I don't want to be the reason. You should do it because it is the right thing to do. Because you want to. Because you're tired. I can see that you're tired. I can see it in your face. I don't want to be the woman a man tells himself he changed for, and then, 10 years in, looks at her and thinks, because of you I am not what I was. That's not love, that's a bill. He was staring at her. Who taught you that? Nobody taught me that. I just know it. I've watched women live that life. Arya, I'm serious. Do it because you want to do it, not because of me. If I am a reason it's easier for you, fine. But I cannot be the reason. I will not carry that. I am not strong enough. He was quiet a long time. I want to, he said finally. I have wanted to for a long time. I did not have a reason to try. You are not the reason. You are the permission. Permission. Permission, yes. Okay. Okay? Okay. Permission I can live with. He let out a slow breath. She felt it move through him, through his shoulder under her hand, and she felt him, for the first time, really settle. Like a man who had been holding himself an inch off the ground for 16 years had just, finally, put his feet down. Thursday came. He did not see her on Thursday. He had warned her. The meeting was in the afternoon. She was not to be in her apartment. She was not to be at Rudy's. Yakov drove her that morning out of the city, north, to a small town on the Hudson that she had never been to, and she spent the day in a bookstore and a cafe and a park by the river, and she did not look at her phone because he had asked her not to. Yakov sat 3 tables away from her in the cafe and read a paperback. He had a gun under his jacket that she was not supposed to notice, and she had not asked him about it. But at one point in the afternoon, a teenage boy on a skateboard came clattering around a corner too fast and almost knocked into her, and she watched Yakov's hand move and then stop before she even had time to flinch, and she understood, in that moment, that there were worlds within worlds, and she was living in one of them now. At 6 o'clock he came to her. Yakov had driven her back. She was in his library, in his house, curled up on the couch, reading a book she did not remember picking up, when she heard the front door open and close, and his footsteps in the hallway, even and unhurried, and she sat up. He came in. He had a small cut on his cheekbone, the kind of cut a ring makes when somebody is being careful to not make it worse. His knuckles on his right hand were a little raw. He was otherwise untouched. His coat was not bloody. His shoes were not bloody. He looked, in fact, almost exactly as he had that morning. Are you okay? Yes. Is anybody dead? No. Anybody going to be dead? Not tonight. Nikolai. Come here. She came to him. He put his arms around her. He put his face in her hair. He stood there like that for a long time, and she could feel his heart through his shirt, and it was beating fast, faster than his voice let on, and she understood that he had come home to her, that this was what that was, and that somewhere between Saturday night and this moment, his home had become the room she was standing in, and not the building around it. It's done, he said into her hair. What's done? The first part. And the next part. The next part we do slowly, together, if you still want to. She pulled back. She looked up at him. I still want to. Good. I love you, Nikolai. She had not planned to say it. She had not even known she was going to say it until it was out of her mouth. And then she heard it in the air, and she thought, well, that's that, I guess. And she did not take it back. He looked at her. He did not say it back, but his hand came up, and he put his thumb along her cheekbone, very gently, and his eyes filled just a little, not enough to spill, and he said, I know. That's it. That's all I get. That is all I can give you tonight. Why? Because if I say it back to you tonight, Arya, I will not be able to stop saying it, and I need to save it for the day when there is no other thing I can give you. I need to hold it in reserve for the nights that are coming. Do you understand? She looked at him for a long moment. Yes, she said. Thank you. Nikolai. Yes. You are a very strange man. I know. I'm going to stay tonight. Okay. I'm going to sleep in the guest room, but I'm going to stay. Okay. Tomorrow I will probably still be here. Okay? Stop saying okay. What should I say? Say thank you. Thank you. Good. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, the one without the cut, and she turned and walked out of the library, and she went up the stairs in his house in the West Village, and for the first time in a very long time, Arya Vance slept in a room where nothing on the other side of the wall was trying to hurt her, and she slept all the way through until morning, deep, dreamless. The way a person sleeps when they have, at last, stopped running from the wrong thing, and started running toward the right one. Morning came the way mornings come in houses you are not used to. Morning came the way mornings come in houses you are not used to. Slow. Unfamiliar. A quality of light through a curtain she had not hung, on a wall she had not painted. Arya lay in the guest room bed for a long time, watching the ceiling get brighter in pieces and listening to the strange, specific silence of a house that somebody actually took care of. And somewhere around 7, she heard a door open downstairs and footsteps. And then a few minutes later, the faint smell of coffee. She came downstairs in the clothes she had slept in. He was in the kitchen, which she had not been in yet, a long, narrow room with copper pans hanging from a rail and a window over a sink that looked out on the little walled garden. He was at the stove, his back to her. He had on a gray t-shirt and loose pants and bare feet, and she saw the scars on his forearms again, only this time in daylight, and this time she did not look away. Morning. Morning. You cook breakfast too. I am making eggs. Eggs is not cooking. Eggs is eggs. Rudy would agree with you. Rudy is a wise man. She sat at the small table in the corner. He poured her coffee. He put a plate of eggs in front of her. He sat across from her. They ate in a quiet that was not awkward, which was the first thing, really, that told her that something was different now. Awkwardness is what happens when two people have not yet decided if they are going to keep being in a room together. They had decided. I need to go to Rudy's today, she said. I know. Because he thinks I died, and also because I want to check. You are allowed to want to check. I know I'm allowed. I am telling you because it is day 1 of the new rules. Yakov will take you. Yakov has a life. Yakov is exactly where he wants to be. She laughed, and the laugh sounded in the quiet kitchen like something that belonged to a different person than the one who had walked into a ballroom 3 weeks ago in borrowed shoes. That morning was the start of what she would later think of, when she was old, as the long, slow part. Not the dramatic part. That part had already happened. The long, slow part was the one nobody ever warned you about when they told you stories about men like Nikolai Draven and girls like Arya Vance. Nobody ever told you that the hard thing was not the ballroom. The hard thing was the 18 months after, the 2 years, when nothing very big happened most days. And yet everything, piece by piece, had to be rebuilt. She did not move into his house. Not that spring. She kept her apartment with Marisol, and she kept her shifts at Rudy's 3 days a week, even after she did not strictly need the money, because she needed the shifts more than the money. She needed Mr. Abernathy and his Sinatra story, and the regulars who called her Vance and did not know or care that her boyfriend, if that was the word, owned half the hotels in Midtown through a chain of companies she was still, honestly, fuzzy on. She needed to pour bad coffee for a truck driver at 6:30 in the morning. She needed to remember who she was when nobody was holding a door for her. Nikolai did not try to talk her out of it. He drove her to work sometimes. More often, Yakov did. Once, memorably, Nikolai came in and sat at the counter for an hour while she worked a lunch rush, and Rudy came out of the kitchen and looked at him, and Nikolai looked back and Rudy said, "You the one. I am the one. You hurt her. I'm going to come find you." Understood. I don't know who you are. I don't want to know who you are, but I'm going to come find you. Understood. Okay. Rudy had gone back into the kitchen. Nikolai had finished his coffee. Arya had watched the whole thing happen at the opposite end of the counter and had not known whether to laugh or cry, and had done neither because she had been refilling Mr. Abernathy's coffee, and Mr. Abernathy deserved her attention. The quiet war went the way Nikolai had said it would go. She did not see it. She heard things. A name on the news one morning in April, a man found dead in a car in Queens, and she had frozen over her yogurt and looked at the screen, and Nikolai, who had been reading the paper across the table from her, had said, without looking up, "Not mine," and she had believed him. Another name in June, a fire at a warehouse in Brooklyn with nobody inside, and this time he had looked up and said, "That one I knew about. I did not cause it, but I knew about it." And she had learned slowly to tell the difference in his voice, between the things that were his and the things that were not. And she had learned to not ask follow-ups, and he had learned to tell her more than he wanted to, because she had asked him to, and because he had agreed. Grigor Volkov did not die. That surprised her, later, when she thought about it. She had expected, in some movie part of her brain, that Grigor Volkov would die, and that it would be clean, and that some morning she would wake up and Nikolai would say, "It is over. That is not what happened." What happened was that Grigor Volkov retired. He moved to a town on the Black Sea. He bought a small house. He took up fishing. Nikolai would mention him, very rarely, the way one mentions a distant cousin who has taken an unexpected but not unwelcome turn. And Arya would nod and not ask how he had been persuaded to fish, and she would let it go. The old man named Vadim, who had taught Nikolai what Nikolai was, did die. That one was not the Quiet War. That one was old age. He died in May, at 81, in a hospital on the Upper East Side, of a heart that had worked longer than it was supposed to. Nikolai sat with him for the last 2 days. Arya did not go. She was not invited, and she did not ask to be. When Nikolai came home from the hospital the second night, he sat in his chair in the library for a long time without speaking, and she sat on the arm of it and put her hand on his shoulder, and eventually he said, "He told me he was proud of me. Umens patipo sarman." For what? For the new thing, the rebuilding. I did not think he knew. He knew. He had known for a year. He did not say anything. At the end, he said he was proud of me. He said he was wrong about some things. He said a man can have a sister and a life. He said he was sorry he had told me otherwise when I was young. Oh, Nikolai. He was my father, Arya. In a way, the father I had after my father. He was a bad man. He taught me to be a bad man. And at the end he said he was wrong, and that is a gift most men never get from the men who made them. I know. I'm going to miss him. I know. I'm going to miss him, and I'm also going to be free of him. Both of those things are true. I know. She had held him that night. In the library. In his chair. Not a sex thing. Not a dramatic thing. Just held him, her cheek against his hair. While a man who had been afraid of his own teacher for 40 years let himself feel, finally, the particular relief of a debt paid and a door closed. They moved in together that fall. Not dramatically, not on a Tuesday with a moving van. She just, over the course of September, stopped going home at night, and a little more of her clothes ended up in his closet every week. And one Saturday she looked around the guest room, which was not really a guest room anymore, and said, "This is stupid, I should just..." And he said, "Yes." And that was that. Marisol kept the apartment. Nikolai paid the rent on it for the next 3 years as a condition Arya had set and not budged on because Marisol had a bad back, and Marisol had made her tea the night of the ballroom, and Marisol had said, "I would kill somebody, and you do not leave a person like that to fend alone." Marisol came to dinner at the house in the West Village every other Sunday for a year before she accepted that Nikolai was not going to poison her. The first time she had inspected the kitchen like a health inspector. The second time she had brought her own bottle of wine and watched him pour from it. The third time she had let him pour from his own. By the 6th time she was arguing with him about a movie he had not seen, and by the 10th time she was telling him, in great detail, what he was doing wrong with the chicken recipe. And Nikolai had listened to her like she was the most important person in the world, and that was the night Arya knew all the way through, that he had meant it. Rudy's got a facelift that year. New booths. Same red vinyl, but new so the tape would not show. A new freezer in the back, a new stove. A new sign over the door with the same letters but straight now. Rudy had yelled at Arya for 2 hours the morning the contractors showed up. I did not ask for this. I know. I did not want this. I know. I have been running this diner for 41 years without a new sign. I know, Rudy. Where is he? In the car. Tell him to come in here. Nikolai had come in. Rudy had yelled at him too for a full half hour about not sticking his nose in where his nose was not wanted, and Nikolai had stood there with his hands in his coat pockets and taken it. And at the end, Rudy had said, "The sign is straight. Fine. I like the sign. You tell anybody I said that, I deny it." Understood. You want eggs? Please. Nikolai had eaten eggs at the counter. Rudy had made him pay for them. He had paid the $2, like everyone else, and had put a $10 tip under the plate, and Rudy had made a face but had not refused it. And after that, when Nikolai came in, he got eggs whether he ordered them or not, and nobody talked about it. That was a thing Arya noticed, slowly, over the first year and the second. The way Nikolai's money started to show up places, but quietly. The way a shelter for women on the Lower East Side suddenly had a new roof. The way a community center in Washington Heights suddenly had computers. The way the scholarship fund at the high school where Pani Helena's grandson taught suddenly doubled. Nothing with his name on it, nothing he ever mentioned unless she asked. Once, when she did ask, he had said, "I took a lot out of this city for 20 years. I'm going to try to put some of it back. That is all. That is not all." Arya, you are trying to be a good man. I'm trying to be a less bad man. Those are the same thing. They are not. They are, Nikolai. Fine. He had started in the second year to sell things, quietly, the way he did everything. A piece of the underground empire, a holding here, a contract there, to men who were not him, who he judged to be the least bad of the available options. He had explained once in the library, in front of the fire, what he was doing, and it had been complicated and she had not followed all of it. And at the end he had said, "I'm trying to walk out of it in a way that does not get 100 people killed on the way out. That is the only way I know how to walk out of it. It takes time." How long? 3 years, maybe 4. I am a year and a half in. Are you in danger? Less every month. Am I in danger? Less every month. Are you going to make it? I am going to make it if you stay. That is not fair. I know. Nikolai, don't. It is true. It does not have to be fair. I am saying what is true. She had sat with that for a long time. She had thought about what he had said, about her not being the reason. She had thought about how he had said permission. And she had thought, the thing about permission is you can only give it if you are there. You cannot give somebody permission from the other side of the country. And she had said, "Okay, I'll stay." I know. Stop saying I know. Sorry. She had laughed. He had laughed. And the fire had popped. And the dog, because by then there was a dog, a big, quiet gray dog they had gotten from a shelter in Brooklyn, whose name was Yanka, and who slept at the foot of whatever chair Nikolai was sitting in, had sighed in her sleep and rolled onto her back and waited for her belly to be rubbed, which Nikolai had obliged absent-mindedly with one bare foot. She took a class that first year, architecture at a community college, at night. She had said halfway through the first semester that it was too late, that she was too old, and Nikolai had said, "You are 25. The only thing too late about you is an apology I owe you." By the end of the second year, she had her certificate. By the end of the third, she was in a night program at a real school, a serious one, and she had worked on a project restoring a building in Harlem, an old stone church that had been a church and then a daycare and then a shell and was now going to be a community center, and she had stood in the middle of the empty sanctuary one Saturday afternoon with her hard hat under her arm, and a foreman had asked her a question about a load-bearing wall, and she had answered it, and the foreman had nodded like her answer had been the expected thing, and she had gone into the bathroom and cried in a toilet stall for a minute, because she was a waitress who had been called a word by a boy in a tuxedo, and she was now a person whose opinion about a load-bearing wall was the expected thing. Nikolai came to her graduation. He sat in the back with Marisol and Rudy and Pani Helena, whom Arya had finally met, a tiny woman with iron-colored hair who had taken Arya's face in her hands the first time and turned it gently side to side, and had said something in a language Arya did not speak, and had then said in English, "You will do. He is a lucky boy," and had kissed her on both cheeks and fed her too much cabbage. At her graduation, when Arya crossed the stage, she looked out into the crowd and found him, and he was clapping, not performatively, just clapping steady and hard, with his face doing the thing at the corner of his mouth, the small, real smile. And Marisol was crying next to him, and Rudy was whistling in a way that was against the rules of graduations. And Pani Helena was beaming like a Christmas light, and Arya walked off the stage into the rest of her life, and she did not, for a second, feel like a stranger in a borrowed dress. The proposal was not a surprise. It was not a surprise because they had talked about it, twice. The first time had been the fall of the second year, when she had said, out of nowhere, over a Sunday breakfast, "I am not getting married in the next 2 years, you should know that." And he had said, "Okay," and they had gone on eating. The second time had been the spring of the third year, when she had said, "I might get married in the next 2 years, you should know that." And he had said, "Okay," and they had gone on eating. He had asked quietly, a few weeks later, where she would want it if it happened, and she had thought for a long time, and then, feeling a little silly, said, "The Belmont." Arya. I know how it sounds, but no. It is a good idea. It is a very good idea. I just wanted to make sure it was you talking and not a movie. It is me talking. Okay. I want to walk back into that ballroom, not to prove anything to them. Those people do not matter to me. I want to prove something to me. I want to stand in the middle of that floor one more time and know that I am not that girl anymore. Not because I married rich, not because you protected me, because of what I did with the years since. I want to stand there with my hard hat under my arm, Nikolai. Not a tiara, a hard hat. Okay. Is that crazy? It is the least crazy thing anybody has said to me in 20 years. Okay? Okay. The night of the proposal was a Thursday, the first Thursday of October. 4 years almost to the day from the night she had fallen onto a marble floor in borrowed shoes. He had asked her to go to dinner. He had not said where. Yakov had driven. She had known, when they pulled up to the Velmont, that something was happening, but she had not known what. The hotel was closed. The big revolving door was chained. A side entrance she had never seen was open, and a man in a black suit was standing at it, and he had nodded at Nikolai and stepped aside, and they had gone in. The hallways were dark. The sconces were off. Only one set of lights was on anywhere in the whole building, and it was the lights of the ballroom, spilling out under the double doors at the end of the corridor. Nikolai walked beside her, not hurrying, her hand in his. He was wearing a dark suit, not a tuxedo. A suit the way he had worn the night they met. She was in a green dress, not her mother's, a new one she had picked out herself that afternoon. They came to the doors. Nikolai. Yes. Did you rent the whole hotel? I bought the hotel 4 years ago, Arya. I have always owned the whole hotel. Is anybody in there? A pianist. One pianist. I told him to play whatever he wanted. He is playing Mozart. I did not ask him to play Mozart. He is doing it because the last time there was a private event in this ballroom, the quartet was playing Mozart, and he heard the story. He heard the story? It is a story in this building now. Oh. He pushed the door open. The ballroom was empty. All the tables were gone. The chandeliers were on but dimmed, a soft gold light that did not pretend to be day. The floor was polished. In the middle of the floor, in the exact spot where she had once been on her knees picking up broken glass, there was nothing. No rug, no table, no mark. Just the floor. The piano was in the far corner, and an older man with gray hair was at it, playing something slow and careful, and he did not look up when they came in. Nikolai walked her to the middle of the floor. He stopped there. He let go of her hand. I am going to say some things, he said, and I am going to try to say them well, but I have not practiced them because I wanted them to be true more than I wanted them to sound good. So you will have to forgive me if they are not smooth. Okay. When I walked into this room 4 years ago, I was a man who had decided at 25 that the cost of loving another person was too high to pay. I had carried that for 16 years. I thought it was wisdom. It was not. It was fear. The oldest fear. The fear of losing another thing the way I had lost my sister. And I had hardened around it the way a wound hardens around a piece of metal that never got taken out. The pianist played a soft run of notes. He did not look over. And then you fell. You fell right there. He pointed. 3 feet from where you are standing right now, and I crossed a room, and I did not know I had crossed it until I was on my knees in front of you, and my whole life was a piece of metal in a wound, and you were the hand that pulled it out. You did not mean to. You did not know what you were doing. You were a waitress on the floor of a party with blood on her palm. And I reached out to help you, and you helped me. I have not said that to you. I will say it now. You helped me, Arya. You did. The man I was before that night would not have recognized the man who is standing here now. He would not have known his own face. And all the things I have done since, the leaving, the rebuilding, the becoming somebody who can walk into a community center in Washington Heights and not feel like a liar. I did because you gave me permission. You said I was not allowed to blame it on you. You were right. But permission is not blame. Permission is the hand holding the door open. You held the door. You are still holding it. She was crying. She had meant not to. She had promised herself on the drive over that she was not going to cry tonight, and she was crying, and she did not even care. I have loved you, he said, since you said no to the money. I did not know the word for it then. I have learned the word for it since. I love you, Arya Vance. I am not going to stop. I have tried. I have tested it. It is not going to stop. And I'm asking you, in the middle of this floor, in this room, in this building that I own because I was once the kind of man who bought buildings to own things, and which I am now the kind of man who owns because I would like to give it back, piece by piece to the city I took it from. I am asking you, in this room, to marry me. Not because I need you, you were right. A man who needs you cannot have you. I do not need you. I want you. I choose you. I am asking you to choose me. He did not get down on one knee. She had asked him not to years ago in a conversation neither of them had ever brought up again. She had said once, in the kitchen, while he was slicing onions, "If you ever propose to me, don't kneel. I have spent enough of my life on my knees in fancy rooms. I want us standing." And he had said, "Okay," without even looking up from the onions. And she had known, the way you know these things, that he had filed it, and that when the day came, if it came, he would remember. He remembered. He stood in front of her, tall, hands at his sides, and he waited. She looked around the ballroom, the empty floor, the chandeliers, the piano in the corner, the place where 300 people had watched her fall. She looked at the man in front of her who had crossed that floor for her when she was a stranger, who had knelt for her when she had not asked him to, who had stood up for her so that she would never have to kneel again, and who was standing now, at her request, because he had learned that love was not a thing you did on your knees. Yes. He closed his eyes, he breathed out. When he opened his eyes, they were wet, just a little, the way they had been the night she had said it first, the night of the meeting, the night he had said, "I know," and saved the words for later. And now later was here and he said them. He said the whole thing. He said, "I love you too, Arya." And he said it in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the ballroom, in the middle of the city, and the pianist, who was a professional, kept playing Mozart and did not look over. But his mouth did the smallest smile as he played. They were married in the spring, not in the ballroom. They had agreed the next morning over coffee that the ballroom had been enough, that it had done its job, that the ballroom did not need to be the site of every moment of their lives. They were married in a small garden upstate, 30 people, at Pani Helena's cousin's farm. Marisol was the maid of honor. Rudy, who had retired by then, gave Arya away, because her father had been gone for a very long time, and Rudy had, at some point, with no paperwork and no announcement, become the father she had been missing. Yakov stood up with Nikolai. Pani Helena sat in the front row in a hat the size of a small umbrella and cried and cried. A pianist played. Not Mozart this time. Something simpler. Something folk. Arya did not wear a hard hat. She had been joking about the hard hat. But in her purse, tucked in a pocket, she had folded up the handkerchief. The white silk one. The one he had given her in a green sitting room 4 years earlier, when she had been bleeding and he had been a stranger. She had washed it, eventually. The blood had come out mostly. A faint rust shadow was still there, in one corner, if you knew to look. She had carried it in her purse on their wedding day, not as a sad thing, not as a dramatic thing, just because she had wanted to know it was with her. A small private relic of the girl she had been and the woman she had become, kept close, not displayed. The years after were not perfect, because nothing is. He fell back into old habits twice. Both times she caught it. Both times they fought about it, hard, for days. The kind of fights where you sleep in different rooms and speak to each other through a closed door. Both times he climbed out of it. The second time he climbed out faster than the first. And the third time, she realized, watching him one evening in the kitchen, had not come and was not going to. She did not tell him she had noticed. She did not need to. He had noticed too. They did not have children. That had been a long, quiet conversation, the kind you have over years, not in a single sitting. They decided, together, that they had both already raised something in this life. He, a dead sister he still carried, she, a dying mother she still carried, and that they were going to give their love to a different kind of family. To Marisol's kids, who came along in the 5th year, one after another, 3 of them, and who called Arya Tia and Nikolai Tio Nik, which was a thing nobody had ever called him in his whole life, and which made his face do something that Arya filed away and took out to look at on hard days. To the boys and girls who came through the scholarship program. To a young woman, eventually, who walked into Rudy's one morning when Arya happened to be there. A girl with dark hair and borrowed shoes and a way of holding a tray that Arya recognized all the way down to the bone, and to whom she had given, that afternoon, the name of a foundation she should call, and a phone number that was not on any of the foundation's paperwork, and who had gone on, 5 years later, to open a bakery in Brooklyn that Nikolai had never invested in, had never owned a share of, had never touched, because Arya had asked him not to, and that woman had built herself. Pani Helena died at 93. Rudy died at 81, at his counter, of a heart attack, which was the way he had always said he wanted to go. And the diner passed to a nephew of his who kept the sign the way it was, and the tape on the booths the way it was, and who kept Arya's mug, a chipped blue thing with a crack near the handle, in the cabinet for her, even after she had stopped working there, because she came in every Wednesday, and would, the nephew understood, until one of them died. Marisol married a mailman. She had a fourth kid. Her back got worse. Nikolai paid for the surgery under a fake insurance plan he had set up for her years before that she had never once asked about and never needed to know wasn't real. She lived to be 89. Yakov drove them for 15 more years. When he retired, Nikolai bought him a small house on the Jersey Shore. Yakov had not asked for it. He had cried the day he moved in, which Arya only knew because his wife called her. Nikolai's empire, by the time he was 60, was not an empire anymore. It was a dozen legitimate businesses. A construction firm that did real construction. A restoration group that restored real buildings. The hotel, still, the Velmont. He had kept the Velmont. He did not explain why. She did not ask. Every year on the anniversary of the gala, they went for dinner in the empty ballroom. Just the two of them. He cooked once in the hotel's kitchen, while Arya sat at the single table in the middle of the floor and watched him through the pass-through, and the chicken, that night, was the best he had ever made. She told him so. He did not believe her. She told him again. He shook his head. She was right, but he would never accept it. When he was 68, he got sick. Not fast. The slow kind. They had 2 years. They spent them quietly. A lot of it in the library. A lot of it with the dog, who had become a different dog, and then another different dog, because dogs do not live as long as people do, and you cannot make them. He read her old books out loud in the evenings in an accent that, at the end, softened back into the one he had started his life with. She had not known what his voice had sounded like when he was a boy. Now she did. On the last afternoon, he had asked her to open the drawer of the bedside table. She had. Inside was the black card, the one he had slid across the table in the Italian restaurant, with the one phone number on it. He had kept it. In her drawer. For 44 years. He had kept the card she had kept because she had forgotten she had kept it, and he had known. He said, "I wanted you to find it after." She said, "I found it now." He said, "Even better." She held his hand. His scarred knuckles. The silver pinky ring, which by then she had learned had her name on it, engraved on the inside, engraved the week of the gala, which he had never told her because he was a strange man, and because some things, he had said once, are better carried than said. He said, "Arya." She said, "Yes." He said, "Thank you." She said, "For what?" He said, "For holding the door." She said, "I know." He said, "Say it." She said, "I know." She was there when he went. She did not cry for a long time after. When she did, it was at the counter at Rudy's, over a cup of bad coffee, next to an old man who had been Mr. Abernathy's grandson, who had taken to coming in mornings and who did not say anything, only pushed the napkin holder a little closer to her with one finger, and she had wiped her face and said thank you, and he had said, "You got it, Miss V," and that was all. She lived to be 84. She built, over the course of her life, 47 buildings in the 5 boroughs. Housing, mostly, shelters, a hospital, a library. Her name went on 3 of them at the insistence of the people she had worked for. Her name did not go on the others at her insistence. She knew which ones were hers. That was enough. She danced one last time at her own 80th birthday with Marisol's oldest, who was by then a lawyer with 3 kids of her own, and who had loved Tionique the way a niece loves an uncle who has saved her once from a thing nobody will ever know about. They danced a waltz. Arya had learned over the years how. She no longer stepped on toes. She closed her eyes during the waltz, and she was, for a second, 24 years old and bleeding through a bandage in a borrowed black dress. And then she opened them, and she was 80, and both of those women, she understood, had been her. and she had loved them both. If her life was going to be a story told, which it was, sometimes, by Marisol's grandkids around their dinner tables, and by the woman from the bakery in Brooklyn who had written a small book, and by the architects that the firm Aria had endowed, who showed new hires a black and white photograph in the entryway of an elegant, graying woman at a groundbreaking in Harlem in a hard hat that was too big for her, and who said, "That's who this is all for." If her life was going to be a story told, she had wanted always for the moral to be something simple, not be rescued, not marry the dangerous man. Those were the wrong morals. Those morals would get a young woman killed. The moral, if there was one, was this: people can change. Not easily, not fast, not completely. A man who has been cruel for 16 years does not become a saint in a week. But he can become, over years, if he chooses to, and if somebody holds the door for him, and if he is willing to walk through it without demanding the door holder become a smaller version of herself. He can become a man who cooks a chicken for the woman he loves, in a house he has tried to make worth her standing in, and a girl who has been on her knees in a borrowed dress in a ballroom full of people who thought she was nothing can become a woman whose signature on a piece of paper puts a roof over 300 families in a neighborhood she grew up walking past. Neither of those things is about the dance. The dance was just the door. Walking through it, all the way through it, in both directions for a lifetime, hand in hand with somebody who will not let you go back to being less than you were the day you both decided to start. That is the story. That is the only story there ever is. Everything else is furniture. Aria Vance, who once picked up broken glass in front of 300 witnesses, closed her eyes for the last time in a bed in a house in the West Village on a morning in April, with a picture of a man on her nightstand and a handkerchief folded in a drawer and a dog at her feet, and she did not, at the end, think about any of the big things. She thought about a cut under a jaw, and a table with a candle on it, and a small voice in her own head, younger than she had been in years, saying, "Oh, he bleeds." And she thought, in a voice that was still her own and had always been her own, "So did I. So do we all. And look what we made of it anyway." And then she was quiet, and the room was quiet, and the city outside, which had given her everything and taken everything back, went on being the city, the way cities do. And somewhere in it, a young woman in borrowed shoes was walking into a room she did not belong to, carrying a tray she was afraid to drop. And somewhere else, a man who had decided he was done being cruel was crossing a floor to meet her, and the story, as stories do, began again, in somebody else's hands, without needing anyone's permission. Not anymore.